Hello and welcome back to day 2 of the SMITE Masters Tournament. Our best of ones are done, so now we've gone ahead and seeded our 4 teams to play out for the remainder of our day. It's going to be nothing but best of 3s. Our first one will be up between the Yomi, Tanuki, and the Hex Mambo, the 2 winning teams from those best of 1 sets. My name is J-Mac. I got Trelly this time joining me on the desk as we get ready to jump into this one and really just jump into the rest of the day here, because it's very important for teams to win these matchups now, because while this game specifically is not an elimination, you know, these are the winner boys here. These are the guys who did the winning earlier on.
Yeah.
If the loser of the winning teams here, they've got to wait a little bit longer before they can do anything. They'll have to face the winner of the loser boys that they'll be playing on after that, and a whole lot of fun going on beyond here.
Yeah, you definitely just want to get this quick win so that you can go back, start watching the rest of these matches, maybe do some notes. Just the easiest way to continue this is to say, hey, you want to win here, and then you can sit back and just start learning.
Yeah, get the dub here, and you're done for the day. You get to wait until tomorrow and then play a little bit more. If you lose, it's going to be a very long day for you, and that's one of the things that Ro and I talked about yesterday is when you get into these brackets like this, especially if you're a team that came into the very first set like the Tanuki had to. They had to play that first game right at the start of the day. Then they have this one. If the Tanuki lose, then they've got to wait all the way until the end of the day. It becomes a very long game. It becomes more of like a war of attrition more than anything else.
Yeah, it's going to be a long one, but both of the first seeds lost in their first matches, right? NA first seed lost to the EU 4th seed, and then here we go, the Tanuki taking down the Warg. So a very interesting turn of events here, but now we get to see the Tanuki versus the Mambo.
Yeah, Tanuki and Mambo should be a very fun one. Obviously, we've already gotten to see these 2 teams today out here, but if you've forgotten the names on it, especially with the Yomi Tanuki, Snatty, Satadrag, Tripno, El Leon subbing in for the support of this team, and then Hydrogen over in that Hunter role. And Elion was kind of the point of conversation when it came to the Yomi Tanuki. You know, as the newest player on the team, kind of gets slotted in, was known more so for his jungling and his mid laner in the past, but has been able to find a nice home here in support.
Yeah, he was known for the jungle, but what he was mostly known for was those shot calls, and I think that could be really any role that you put a player in. As long as they're telling you what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, it's going to be one of those things where as long as the team comes together and respect what you're saying, your team's going to be better for it. And I think that's exactly what we saw in the matchup previously, was these great objective play shot calls that Elion brings to the table, and the fact that these drafts, the double Hunter style comps that we've been seeing so much of, they've executed so well. It's just really difficult to deal with. Maybe you're used to facing a mage in the mid lane, but now you've got picks like the Chernobog, for example, where Tripno can just dive the backline as an ADC. You usually just have to focus on one, but not anymore.
Yeah, you can't ignore just one Hunter any longer. You can't even ignore just one auto attacker here. I mean, Satadragon here on this Osiris was making massive impactful plays. His build was allowing his carries to be able to do that. So even though he's playing this more kind of carry-esque style jungler, he was definitely playing as more of a facilitator. I mean, the executioner that was coming out, the stone cutting sword, really felt like it was allowing that team to be able to burn not just objectives, but enemy players at the same time.
Yeah, Satadragon's always fun to watch. His playstyle, usually, as you mentioned, is that hard carry. He's got the Khalees in the back pocket, but the Osiris sort of does everything you want because it's got that early game pressure, and then also you can have that hard carry late game that we just saw. You can build into those auto attack style builds. When you have a comp like that, you have to use those executioners to your advantage to, you know, shred for the rest of your squad.
Yeah, being able to shred through there. And again, always kind of keeping us, you know, maybe on edge with some of the picks out there. Still waiting for that spicy pick that Snatty was talking about going. You know, it's something he teased in the interview saying, we might have something spicy ready to kind of play it out here. So we're still ready to see if he's going to pull that pick out, or maybe if it was just a bait all along. It's something that we'll have to wait for. They are going up against the Hex Mambo on the other side, able to find their win up against the Shibalba Storm. Another very long-winded game between those 2 teams. And the players on there, I mean, Deathwalker, Johnny, Zeros, Trixtank, and Echrome to round out that entire roster here. A lot of tenured talent there just on pretty much everybody. I'm not going to say that Echrome is not a tenured one, but I mean, you're looking at SPL talent for almost the entirety of that team, and then Echrome able to slot himself in here very beautifully.
Yeah, we talked about the sort of meta switch up that the Tanuki went for and how it might be hard to ban against them, but this is another team. The Mambo are also going to be extremely hard to ban up against because what are they been playing consistently? Not too much. I mean, we've seen this Kumba time and time again, but besides that, all of these picks can sort of flow in and out of the meta right now, and Jingwei, obviously anyone that can play Jingwei right now, you have to watch out for that. So just a very difficult squad to try and match up against. You never really know what they're going to pull out. I think Zeros has played like 10 different characters in that mid lane to some great success. So always a team to keep your eye on, especially with facilitators like Johnny. We've seen how successful he's been able to be in this SCC league specifically, and playing picks like, again, who's playing Hoonbats right now?
One.
Exactly.
I mean, nobody's really playing those picks. And it's important to also highlight the fact that Johnny had, what was it, 5 bans allocated to him in that last game. Every single one of the Shibalba-Storm's bans was dedicated towards Johnny to try and keep him down. And he still gets 100 bats. And he still kind of pops off here. So it then leads the question, Charlie, when you get into these picks and bans against a team like that, when you're penta banning and then effectively getting a 6th one when you grab another assassin, what do you do? Where do you avert your attention at that point?
I mean, you have to try and shut down the duo lane right now, I imagine, because it's just so easy to carry through your ADC if they can get online, especially if they get free stats, right? Like the Jingwei, for example, getting free crit. Then you can go into the Chin size build and the crit pretty much for free. Things like Artemis we've seen a little bit of, anything with like a stim. So trying to ban out the duo lane, making sure that it can't get off to these hardcore starts. Trix tank is always going to sit in that lane for quite some time and try and get the ADC ahead. So you want to focus on that duo lane specifically, I imagine, because banning out Johnny, that's not going to be a great option.
And it's kind of funny seeing the adaptation of the duo lane we've been seeing, the massive rise of Jingwei, Rom, Chernobog, those kind of ones, which is so funny coming from the EU region specifically, where Heimdall has kind of been their #1. I mean, we go through the first 4 or 5 weeks of SCC, and it's Heimdall first picks, Heimdall first bans over anything else. And it's actually the NA team that picks up the Heimdall. They end up giving up the Jingwei there. So maybe the duo lane is the focus. Again, though, maybe just the Hunter specifically, because Trix Tank is a person, as we see in that last game, he's playing Kumba Karna. And who else is playing Kumba? What, Mogao? Silenced, maybe? That's about it.
Yeah, whenever we like to talk about Trix, it's just he's going to be going in on these weird style, not even weird style picks, these aggressive style picks. Picks that you can go in, and even if you don't have to hit every single ability, as long as you're making sure to soak up damage, be annoying, you can always set up your team for greatness. So Trix is always going to find success on really anything that he likes to go. We saw him on the Bacchus a bit ago. We see him on the Sobek, that sort of thing. And now, even on the Kumba. Kumba is like the definition of get to the back line and just be annoying. He has so much CC to try and interrupt you, and it's just, how do you play against that?
You have fun when you're sitting there and doing nothing for 3 seconds at a time after you get mez. Let me tell you, I'm not having fun at that point, and so I definitely don't want to be doing that myself there. But we do have a very brief video interview that we're going to have, so we'll go ahead and throw that one over to you guys.
Uh-oh. I've got some talents in the room. I'm walking the wrong. I'm going to walk this way. Yeah, it's fine. We're not going to leak your strats, bro. Oh, wow. That is... What a strategy. Quig, how do you feel about your last set, man? How'd it go? And which team do you play for?
I'm Quig. I'm the support for the Eldritch Hounds. And last set went pretty good, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oath, would you echo that sentiment? Do you think that set went well for you?
Yeah, we won, right? So I think, yeah, won pretty well.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Some easy questions for the guys, some low balls, but I figure let's up the tempo a little bit. Oath, what's your least favorite part about Quig?
Yeah, it's a lot of bad ideas sometimes. Like, he could listen to me a lot more, and I think he would benefit from it. I might be dead here, by the way.
Oath going for the big play, is going around the jungle, gets totally owned by Snoopy. Oh my god, why is Snoopy in this game? Quig, how do you feel about the allegations from Oath? He said that your feet stink and you have bad ideas.
Gilly's on the phone, by the way. My ideas are pretty bad sometimes, but that's part of the process. We're an amateur team, and we go through growing pains. That's what happens.
Okay, fair enough. Well, it's just come to my attention that we've got another player in the studio today, Gilliara. How does it feel to be a world champion?
It feels amazing. Every day I wake up and I just am filled with boundless energy and hope for the future, just because of my past accomplishments.
And if you had to thank any one individual player for getting you that world championship win, who would it be?
Delta Marine 72.
Cut the interview. It's over. We'll cut the interview. We don't need to hear that. Oh, man. For context on that joke, or I suppose it's not a joke, Gilliara was actually my coach when I went for my Worlds run here. So this is me. I don't know what I'm doing with my arm. It's a little bit weird. They wouldn't let me hold the trophy. Eric Cougar, Jelly. This is Delta Marine 72, the one he credits with the win. This is Gilliara himself, coaching at the time. And Derek Worst, or Dworst. And that was my squad. We won a console thing.
I've heard of doing phone interviews before, but that's a new one to me, Charlie. I'm just going to be honest and put that one out there. That's a first for me, is doing an interview with a mic over a phone like that.
I just don't like how much power that gives Mifflin now. He can interview anyone, not just people here. He can interview anyone in the world now.
As long as he's got access to somebody with either a phone number or a Discord of some way, even a FaceTime of some sort, he can interview just about anybody out here. That's too much power to give Mifflin.
Yeah, no one is safe when Mifflin has his tiny mic, but either way, we learned a lot about the Eldritch Hounds who played yesterday. And
they're not even here. They're not even playing today.
Well, we learned what we're going to see,
Yeah, eventually we'll see, but that just shows some dedication to these guys who want to come out here and get some practice here out in the studio. Obviously, those guys playing in one of our other booths out here. But enough about the Hounds. Let's get back into the Tanuki and the Mambo. Game number 1, picks and bans are ready to go, and we'll get to see exactly what kind of adaptations these two teams have made up against each other. Do we see Yomi make some of those targeted bans towards the dual lane like you were highlighting earlier on?
Oh,
or
yeah.
do we see them go for some standard stuff? And it will be a Kumba Karin ban right out the gate.
I'm worried that they were watching the stream. They're like, wait, Charlie, that's a good idea. We should ban the Kumba. Either way, I think it is just something that no one really knows how to play against because it's not something in the meta right now. No one else is playing Kumba, and they're saying, hey, Kumba looks really annoying to deal with. We don't want to get our lockdown that much. Hunter comp's very strong, and the Mez slows the attack speed. We don't want to deal with that, as well as this Mercury, another something that can get to the backline very quickly from quite the distance. Just ban that away as well.
And not just that, the Baron Somebody taken away with a Mercury on the side of the Tanuki, so getting rid of some of that solo lane prowess that this mage has been able to show. On the opposite side here, though, double Hunter, Chernobog, and Ull banned away by Hex Mambo. Kleina's still open, and as I say that, Kleina is no longer open. She gets banned away here by Hex Mambo. No surprise, though, 100% pick and ban rate for that god so far this week.
Yeah, Kleina's been looking very strong, and make no mistake, the Chernobog certainly could be a duo lane ban as well, but that Uller was played in the mid, so these are both looking like trip no bans to me, as we saw the Chernobog earlier as well, but that leaves open the SS tier Jingwei if you're following Polar Bear Mike's tier list, so arguably one of the strongest ADCs in the game right now. I guess they didn't want to deal with the global presence or just how much damage Uller mid can do, so letting Jingwei through. Now you go with the Geb, try and counter some of those crits.
This, to me, once again says that we're going to possibly be seeing Deathwalker piloting this god back in the solo lane. We saw him do it last game, up in his previous little best-of-1 matchup here against the Storm. We'll see if that comes true, or will this be one that Trix Tank decides to take? But that doesn't really feel like a Trix Tank god to me. Trix Tank loves these real aggressive style picks. The Kumas, the Sobeks, the Fafnirs typically come to mind when I think of Trix.
Yeah, I want to see something like Bacchus or Sobek, as you mentioned, just really getting to the backline and CCing as much as possible. I just think Geb's going to be a solid pick into the Jingwei. With Spectral Armor, you're really not going to have to worry too much about the crit damage. And then Nemesis eating up some of that as well with the shield could be a solid route to try and get to the backline and shred as much protections as possible. Now, it's all in the Tanuki's hands here. Are they going to try and get a dual lane for themselves? Do they want to focus on their support? No, it looks like they want to get their jungler, Sada Dragon. Going to have a solid matchup into Nemesis. It's really difficult to dash away from the tether as a Nemesis, and Yamoja as well.
Wow, so going with their front line very early on here for the side of the Tanuki. So the dual lane rounded out with the Jingwei Yamoja, and then Osiris with some of that flexibility between the solo lane, between that jungle. But Hex Mambo will once again pick up something that they grabbed in their previous matchup, Baba Yaga. Going to be drafted here for the mid lane. How do you feel about the Baba? I mean, we saw what Baba Yaga can do when you get to that late game. How do you feel up into this matchup against like the Yamojas and the Osirises?
I mean, once I saw that these Warlock staff style builds were coming into the meta, you have to imagine that Baba is going to be at least on the table. Anyone that can stack these items quicker than the opposition, get that % penetration online early, it's going to be a good time. So I think Baba Yaga works well here. Trying to survive through an Osiris dive will be a little bit annoying early, but I think that's sort of why we're seeing these builds. Of course, the Charon's Coin start also pretty prevalent, getting some movement speed online. We've seen that as well. So I think a pretty solid start here from Zeros as we look at these bans. Ho Yi and Rama are going to be taken away by the Tanuki. They don't want to deal with either of those, which is interesting because you don't want to deal with the crit from Jingwei, and Ho Yi does not care too much about crit, so banning away that, probably a smart option.
Maybe so. And then Jormungandr AMC on the opposite side for Hex Mambo, so getting rid of yet another Hunter, and a very potent one, especially with how many extra protections have been coming up recently, the ability to shred those with that Stinger, and the amount of burst damage that he can have there. The Jormungandr might be a little bit more the interesting one because they're not really seeing too much of him. We've seen, what, 2 games so far of the Jormungandr, kind of a half-half on that one. But it will be Heimdall, maybe not so surprising for the side of Hex Mambo. He really does just love to play this hunter.
Yep, 1 game and 1 L so far. Haven't been able to
Unfortunate.
stack up too well. Heimdall, usually pretty safe, and I think that seems to be the option here. Jingwei, also incredibly safe if you want to survive in that lane. Both of these hunters are going to be a solid way to go. But because we're pretty sure this is Sada Dragon on the Osiris, they could still be holding on to a flex potential. It's possible that Tanuki still could be holding on to what Snatty described as that real cringe pick in the solo lane that we've been waiting so much to find out. This would be the time to unveil it, unless you're waiting for game 2, just because you want to catch them off guard, get an early lead. Mifflin, a big fan of saying game 1 is much more important than game 2. So if you come out to a hard swing, what are you going to do?
Now, I'll agree to that to an extent. I think in a best of 3, game 1 is definitely the most important one. In game 5, I'm still a believer on game 2 being the most important one here. But for the Yomi Tanuki, getting their best foot forward in game number 1 would be in their best interest, as they still have 2 more picks to go, need their mid laner in either their jungler or their solo, depending on where this Osiris is going to be slotted towards. Do we get to see the infamous pick that Snatty has been alluding to? Maybe not pulling out in that first game just because of comp dependency. Apollo locked in. Does bring a little bit of intrigue here with the Jingwei. Should be slotting this Apollo maybe over towards the mid lane.
Yeah, that's got to be Apollo mid. I mean, I guess it certainly doesn't have to be, and it looks like the solo Beck? I think, yeah, it's got to be the solo Beck, because you're not seeing a Yamoja in the solo lane too often, and we know that Sad Dragon likes the Osiris in the jungle, so that's going to be...
Would you call that a spicy pick? Solo Beck?
No. You know what that is? Is the most boring lane matchup I've ever... It's going to be Geb versus Sobek.
Oh, gosh.
Can you imagine ever seeing a solo kill in that lane? I cannot imagine it.
Can they even clear the wave?
I mean, it's going to take a long time and a lot of trading blows, but they could pick a warrior here because they realize they're up against the solo Beck and say, hey, maybe Trix, you take this gap. This could be a little bit of a rotation. They have time to think about it, but it looks like they are just going to hover the Terra here. Both have been seen in the solo lane now because we just saw Geb solo last game, and Terra we've seen in the solo lane in past, but I have to imagine that's the Trix tank pick.
Yeah, that one feels definitely a little bit more Trix tank oriented. Though, as you say, it wouldn't surprise if we did see Deathwalker maybe pick that one up. But considering he just had a Geb Walker game previously on, it wouldn't surprise me if he decided to hold on to that Guardian for himself here. So Nemesis Geb on that right side of the map, squaring off against Osiris and Sobek. Then in the mid lane, talk to me a little bit about Apollo. We've seen in the duo lane, we've seen what he can do. We've also seen the infamous Johnny Apollo jungles. Obviously, we're not going to be seeing that here. Johnny taking the Nemesis on the opposite side here. But talk to me a little bit about Apollo mid. How does that one kind of change up and stack up in the competition?
I imagine you're just trying to press it, put pressure wherever you can on the opposite sides of the map. It's sort of like Chernobog. We just saw Tripno play this Chernobog and say, hey, we're going to farm as much as we can, and then use that ultimate to rotate wherever you need. Apollo does the same thing. The Chernobog's banned away. They said, hey, we still want that global presence. We still want Double Hunter. Apollo's just going to be the next best thing, and just a little bit better in the 1v1 because Chernobog doesn't like fighting too much. Against the Baba Yaga, I imagine there's not going to be too much kill potential until Sada Dragon steps in, but I think both of these hunters are going to bring the same sort of style.
Now, before today, we'd been talking a lot about the 25 to 30-minute mark, that kind of being that big power number, but with the first 2 sets that we had on this day specifically, we're hitting 35, 40 minutes. Charlie, when it comes down to those team fights, when it comes down to those late game objectives here, where do you kind of put your advantage for these two teams?
I mean, when you look at the Tanuki's draft, they have 3 auto attackers. We already know they're going to be building 1 executioner to shred protections and then 2 ADCs just to burn through objectives. So simply by the burn aspect, I think Tanuki will be doing it much quicker, but they don't have too much crazy burst, and Baba Yaga is going to be doing that quite well, so you have to try and put some pressure onto Zero saying, hey, we can do these objectives quick, but what's our best confirm? A fully charged Sobek ult or a crit from Jingwei, perhaps? Like, that's not going to be too great, especially if you're building tanky. So I have to imagine you got to keep your ward game strong because, again, they could do it very quickly, and you got to keep eyes on Zeros.
So definitely objective play, kind of the name of the game here for the side of the Yomi Tanuki. But when you're looking over at Hex Mambo, it feels that they've definitely drafted where they're much more focused on these team fight aspects. I mean, where's the team fight strengths that come from the Tanuki to try and fight up against that?
I mean, when you have a tanky draft like this with like an Osiris who's their jungler but also going to be building kind of hybrid, and then the double Guardians, you have to worry about the Nemesis shred because she's going to be making your tanky targets a lot less tanky. Of course, Baba Yaga, we've seen Zero start the Charon's coin early, get that percentage penetration online as well as just getting free stacks. So your mid laner is going to be doing a lot more damage than the enemy team might expect a little bit earlier on, and you got to watch out for that because you've drafted 2 hunters. The hunters want to get to that level 30 point of the game.
Game 1 of the best of 3. Winner of this set moves on. Loser has to play one more. Who's going to get the early advantage? Will it be the Tanuki or will it be the Mambo?
A brilliant question, and the answer of that will decide one of these two teams' fates and whether or not they will be confirmed moving on from today. One of these teams guaranteed safety after this set. Mifflin, the first game is, well, as Trelly highlighted, your favorite game.
And that's what you're going to drop to me with? You want me to talk about that?
Okay, hold on. We'll try again. Mifflin, break this one down for me.
Good God. I might as well take your mic and just do it myself. Yeah, the pacing in this game I think is very interesting in that it's another double hunter composition from Yomi Tanuki. So your ability to burn objectives, as Trelly says on the desk, is very high. But the lack of any form of confirmation, because he might be right, an auto attack from Hydrogen in the late game that happens to crit might just be the best confirmation tool Tanuki has, means that they're going to have to play very cautiously around objectives, despite having so much ability to do them just about every single portion of the game. Whereas Hex Mambo, yet again, come away with a composition that is just waiting for that 25 to 30 minute mark where they can group up as 5 and take on these team fights. This time, though, instead of having 100 bots in the jungle, Nemesis is not going to offer the exact same level of CC lockdown. Instead, it's more so about that pick potential. That said, looking at what Yomi Tanuki have got, some of these picks are going to struggle against Nemesis.
Trixtank has already used that blink just a second ago in this left-hand side, but Elion and Hydrogen still at level 1. Level advantage was momentarily there in favor of Hex Mambo, but gonna clear that up now that that's all done. That wave is all kind of finished up here and back into the mid lane, just trying to find that first bit of early poke. Now, Mifflin, I want to talk about this solo lane matchup here.
Are you sure?
I do, yeah. Like, this is something that they highlighted on the desk. This is a very low damage lane.
So the desk highlighted that solo lane is going to, in particular, be very boring, and now you're trying to direct our conversation there while Johnny's being accosted in mid?
I just like hearing you really struggle to find things to talk about.
I'm not. Johnny was taking a fight. I was going to allow that to happen. Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, solo lane matchup. I suppose the only way anybody dies is if a gank happens. Snatty is going to have advantage in lane just because Sickening Strike has self-sustain and Deathwalker's playing Geb, so he's going to struggle to clear and to self-sustain. So if one of them is going to have an advantage, it's going to be the Sobek, but which one of these two is going to have higher impact come late game? I think that's, again, it's going to be Geb, with the changes to Cataclysm in the most recent seasons now actually having damage on it as well as percentage damage. Means that Deathwalker with a little bit of magic power is going to be doing a whole lot in some of these late game team fights. I mean, we saw it in their last match, just essentially one-shots a Hunter on his own at, well, it was the 40-minute mark, but you know, it still stands.
Yeah, it's still significant for sure. A little cheeky invade there coming out from Dragon, able to pick up that red buff away from Zeros. Now, Zeros is probably a character that you really want to focus on putting behind in this early game, right? You don't want this Baba Yaga to get to that late game state for as long as humanly possible. Trixtank over here trying to potentially find a little steal onto the purple buff, puts those walls up. A little late, Elion throws out that bubble though, does nearly find it as you mentioned, but Trix is going to be just fine. We've already covered it so many times this week so far, but these Guardians just have so much safety.
Yeah, literally everybody, by the way. It's level 3, level 4. Everybody's feeling very safe at this portion of the game. It's generally around first item complete on some of these gods that are more early game slanted, second item for the mid-game slanted characters before that kill pressure really is there. Otherwise, it's going to take a whole lot of CC to do anything. And that's a perfect example immediately of the differences between 9-5 and 9-4. If you ate a Yamoja stun into double bubble combo with a un-DR'd knockup from a Jingwei in 9-4, you're removed from this lane. You're not able to fight back in. It just happens to Ikram. He's just fine.
Elion tries to take away one of those Harpies, but Ekrom and Trix able to combine for the secure onto that. Some shenanigans going on the right-hand side. Snatty's just really pushing up close to that tower. Deathwalker.
You just can't help it. You want to talk about solos
I really do.
bad.
I'm interested in the Sobek pick, right? There are so many different characters that Snatty could have gone on to. You've already mentioned...
yeah, like 118 or something.
Well, yeah, like in the last game we were talking about these, you know, bottom of the Wendy's dumpster picks.
You really like that,
I
okay.
really like that phrase. I'm really intrigued to see this Sobek. I'm just curious as to why the Sobek over any other potential Guardian.
It's the ability to be an initiator for your team when you've got a pretty high execution initiator in Yomoja. She's going to struggle at times to find these impact ultimates, so in that regard, you can make it easier by having Snatty just pluck somebody come late game. I promise you're going to see the Sobek plays, just probably not for another 15 minutes.
All right, I'll set my watch. It'll.
Well, there's a clock in the game.
Well, no. I'll set my watch.
Okay.
That way I don't need to. It will just tell me. My
Yeah.
watch will tell me. We'll set
As
a
will the
little
clock
alarm.
in the game.
20 minutes on the timer is when we'll start to see these plays coming out from Snatty. But for now, just back to this kind of neutral farm. It's about 400 gold in between these two teams at the moment. Tanuki really showing off a decent understanding and ability to control these neutral objectives.
Yeah, they've got relatively high pressure picks compared to what Hex Mambo have brought, especially in that mid 3v3. Yomoja going to do a little bit more for wave clear than Trix Tank will in this Terra. Tripno is very threatening at this point with his Gilded Arrow moving into that Devourer's Gauntlet that Zeros doesn't really want to line up against him just yet, so that should create scenarios where the Tanuki can just control those mid camps, as well as just having a very high pressure jungler. That said, high pressure jungler has not got involved just yet. I haven't seen a whole lot from Sada Dragon, who has hit a significant power spike, already has the Stone Cutting Sword, Mannequin Scepter. I think Mannequin Scepter in 9.5 has a little bit more value than it once did in 9.4, in that I would say around level 6 in 9.4, Mannequin Scepter is just worthless in a fight. You're not really leveraging that passive very well anymore, but here in 9.5, any bit of additional consistent damage is so important with these survivability changes.
Hydrogen could be in a rough position, but a beautiful sidestep to avoid the Nine Realms push from Ekrom. Trix Tank does make his way over, but thanks to a nice fancy footwork demonstration from Hydrogen, he's going to be just fine. He's going to be happy to even stay in lane. Doesn't take that much damage at all.
No, and doesn't have to split any farm with his support, whereas Trix Tank makes the rotation trying to confirm that kill, meaning that Ekrom is already behind, about probably a half level, and is splitting even more farm with this Terra, whereas Hydrogen sticks around, doesn't lose out on his beads, and can continually farm up on his own.
No ultimate available for either of these two ADCs this time around, but Trinxhack really wants to put pressure over here, and Tripno is seemingly happy to meet that. No, Zekrom does not have the ultimate available. Not a lot of cooldowns for either of these two players, and the ultimate into the so beautiful. So far, very effective, but there's Johnny hitting that final judgment. Tripno takes a lot of damage from
Good
it.
stun.
But look at the stun! Elion finds two. Trix Tank is going to join his jungler in the ground, and Ekrom gets pulled back. The beads too late, but is it going to be too little? I'm not sure there's enough ability here to take down the ADC, but still a huge 2-kill swing in favor of Yomi Tanuki.
2 kills, and you strip the beads away from the Heimdall. A massive turnaround for Yomi Tanuki, and that's all thanks to Elion's ultimate. Separates the entirety of Hex Mambo. Ekrom can no longer get involved. Doesn't really have a whole lot of peel, has Heimdall, but damage is peel at this portion of the game, but Ekrom not allowed to apply that. So the Yomi Tanuki, who have been dealing with this continuous aggression from Trix Tank, finally have a rotation from Tripno and are able to put 2 on the board. Double kill, first blood, and a massive gold swing. That's tough, and that's the nature of getting as aggressive as Trix Tank was. He spent so much time on that side of the map, Trix Tank that is, that he, I have to assume, felt like he had to get something for his efforts because he had split so much with Ekrom, and in doing so, overextends himself and creates an opportunity for the Order side.
Putting him behind even more. Let's go ahead and take another look at this rotation over from the mid laner and the support. There's going to be just this beautiful wave to separate out, allow Tripno to escape there, really blocks those two people in. Just the stun, the execution from Elion on this Umoja is absolutely crazy. There's the Riptide. Unfortunately not able to finish off Ekrom, but what a double kill.
Yeah, might not get the kill, but might as well have because beads are that valuable, so Ekrom going to have to play very safely. But you're right to say that Leon just does so much there. Not only the picturesque ultimate, but the double stun applies all of his damage as well. I mean, that was completely set up by the Umoja, despite having Tripno be the actual initiator in that fight by going in with his ultimate. Hex Mambo just caught out a little bit on the left-hand side, and that's a larger swing than I'd even had anticipated, closing around 2.5 thousand gold separating these two squads, and that's without any neutral objectives having fallen yet. That's again without Sada Dragon getting involved whatsoever. Level 9 now in this Osiris. I'm not certain that he's applied all that much damage this game, but might not be needed when the rest of his team's having as good of a time as they are.
Absolutely not. Looking towards this left-hand side now, this Gold Fury probably going to be the next major point of discussion for these two teams as the Oracles do now fall down. Just about finding the space in order to do it. As we've mentioned, Yomi Tanuki now sitting with a pretty decent lead here, 10 minutes into the game. It's just about 2,500 gold. It'll be very interesting to see what they're going to do with that, because at the moment, we're just back to neutral.
We are. Take a peek at the build difference between Yomi Tanuki's two hunters, though. Hydrogen going for that standard crit tree, immediately in towards the Wind Demon, 20% some odd crit, as well as some penetration. Whereas on the other end, Tripno going down that balance blade tree has options available to him. If he's going to play a little bit more selfishly, concerned about his own damage output, kin size probably pretty potent right now, but could also look towards Executioners, and that would help out Sada Dragon as well as Hydrogen. So I'll be keeping my eyes on this Apollo and see how he decides to play it.
A little bit of a skirmish here over the right Harpies in the mid lane, but nothing really too much to come of it. We're still really waiting for Sada Dragon, as you've mentioned, to get involved in these fights. At the moment, he seems perfectly content farming up, trying to get
Doug,
more
let's see these
items
damage
online.
charts. Let's see them.
Yeah, let's have a look. And
400.
427 damage on, yeah, like a pretty early pressure jungler, and he's going to have to get involved here. Tripno already taken down to nearly
Great
0 HP,
ults.
but again, a beautiful wall to separate out this fight. Elion able to follow his mid laner out of that engagement. Sada Dragon finally in here trying to do some damage, is able to lock down Zeros for now. No ultimate available for the mid laner, no jump available for him either.
Whoa!
The jump comes out of position, but here comes Snatty, looking potentially to close the distance, isn't quite going to have the ability to find it, and Zero somehow gets out there.
Yeah, just misplaced ultimate from Sada Dragon. Wasn't quite able to stick to his target, which is surprising considering he's got Winged Blade and Stone Cutting, a very fast Osiris right now. Perhaps concerned about the damage output coming from Mambo. Speaking of, Zero's dropped low yet again. Leon trying his best to do everything for his team, but does not quite have enough damage. Still, though, has to get some credit for that phenomenal ultimate to save everybody's lives.
Now, just putting in a little bit of damage to that tier 1 tower, so not a complete waste of time for either of these two teams. Yomi Tanuki walk away with a little bit of an easier objective at some point later in the game. Potentially picking up this Scorpion here as well. Believe they do pick that up. That is going to go the way of Yomi Tanuki, and they are continuing to nurse this lead here, although it hasn't really extended much beyond the last couple minutes.
Yeah, Experience has actually closed out a fair deal. Hex Mambo getting having a very good time just splitting their farm effectively. It's generally been 2 splits, whereas Yomi Tanuki in the last couple of minutes have been 3 splitting as they've been trying to leverage aggression. In doing so, have not had the most effective farm, but I think they're right to try and throw their weight around. Speaking of, Echrome getting very aggressive. Gotta think Hydrogen was a little bit too trigger happy with that ultimate. A little too much fear there for my liking. Think he could have probably just dashed away or even potentially returned some auto attacks, especially considering the difference in these builds. Echrome is not well suited for a 1v1 right now. Auto attacks, sure, are more consistent, but 1 crit is worth any 2 or 3 auto attacks from Echrome.
No, for sure. I think maybe Hydrogen gets a little jittery there. As you can see on the left-hand side of the map here, there's no wards on the side of Yomi Tanuki. So as far as Hydrogen's concerned, this is a run back of earlier, right? Ekrom uses that ultimate to try and close gap or potentially get a setup for Trix Tank or somebody else to come in and finish the kill. So maybe Hydrogen a little over-predictive there, is expecting the support or the jungler to come out of the jungle, but instead just uses his ultimate for no reason. But that's definitely got to be a wash. Both ADCs use their ults, although Ekrom's is already back up.
Yeah, take a peek at the relic selection on the side of Yomi Tanuki. Triple shell pickup. And that's something you'd expect to see against a team that has walls. A Ymir, a Yamoja, or something along those lines. No, that's Yomi Tanuki's Yamoja. So instead, maybe some hastened shells to get a little bit of additional movement speed to deal with some of the dive potential of Hex Mambo. It is going to be very difficult to shut down this backline because shells are not the only source of HP shields. Now, Leon affords that to his team just by using that second ability, the Mending Waters. So Hex Mambo gonna have to work very, very hard to confirm some of these kills and to finish them off. And looking at Hex Mambo, only one member has got a whole lot of burst. So maybe in the late game you can bring Deathwalker up with that Cataclysm, but Zeros, again, once he transforms to with that Home Sweet Home, loses out on his entirety of burst. It then becomes consistent damage, essentially over time, and that's where Shell's going to shine. But when he's in that base stance, double potion, first ability, that's a good deal of burst. So keep your eyes on Zeros. I think he's going to be very, very choosy with when he chooses to use the ultimate.
And he has to be, right? We saw it earlier on with Sada going straight onto him, but even his jump isn't seemingly gonna take him far enough away to save him. Final Judgment coming out of the Nemesis there does hit Tripno, but no real follow-up coming back through from Mambo.
Yeah, I mean, Tripno is so far away, and a Riptide from LAO puts him even further away. Felt like Johnny was a little bit too trigger-happy yet again with ultimates, and maybe a theme in this game so far. Tripno able to show us why ADCs are so good, able to resustain very quickly that Nemesis ult. Now, Yomi Tanuki are in a decent position to try and force a fight, I'm thinking. With Nemesis, no ultimate available, Erendite in that second spot, meaning that she's taken a slight power hit in sacrifice to make her ultimate even more effective. Means that she's pretty weak right now. Johnny essentially not effective in the next couple of fights while we wait for that cooldown. So I'd like to see Yomi Tanuki maybe rotate over towards the Pyromancer, the easier of the two neutral objectives, and try and force a fight.
Looks like it might be the Gold Fury, though, instead, Mifflin. This four-man presence over here on the left-hand side might be indicative of Tanuki wanting to show some presence around this objective. But for now, it looks like they were just testing the waters, going to pick up those oracles and head back to base. But 16 minutes in, Mifflin, this is a very different pace from what we saw in the last Tanuki game, where they were picking up a lot more of these Gold Furies.
They were. Again, they have to be concerned. Sure, you've got a double Hunter composition, but you don't exactly have the core of your front line with you just yet. Sada Dragon has gone for a slight utility build with Wingblade in the second slot, but Toxic in third means that he is a little bit more damage slanted, so can't just stand in front of Hex Mambo and create that space. And Leon has to play facilitator in his own backline, using his ultimate for disengage or re-engage rather than just initiating himself. So until Snatty starts to make his rotations, Yomi Tanuki are essentially hamstrung in their own aggression. They can't really leverage it just yet. But as we are 16 and a half, 17 or so minutes in, we're starting to get to that point where the Soul Laners are going to be confident in their ability to rotate out. But it is the Pyromancer pulled out first. Yomi Tanuki burning it very fast.
About 10% of his HP, no one really in
Close.
range, but the follow-up could be here from Hex Mambo. They're looking to collapse on to the members of Tanuki, and a beautiful, well-placed heal from Elion is going to keep his carries a little bit healthier, and I think with that Riptide pushing Elion out of this fight, that should be all she wrote.
Great trigger discipline from Leon. I can't imagine I'm sure his team is probably calling for it too. Yo, just peel us out. Drop the ultimate. Get us out of there. But Leon says, hold on. Riptide's just enough. There's not really much engagement left for Hex Mambo. Johnny already used the ultimate, and they are able to slowly slip away. They take the neutral objectives for themselves with zero fight back from Hex Mambo. And Yomi Tanuki get to push their lead even slightly further ahead.
Hydrogen once again getting aggressed on here on the left-hand lane by Ekrom, while Tanuki push up a little bit further in the mid lane, just once again going back into this slow, steady, methodical play, fighting over these neutral objectives that have brought Yomi Tanuki all the way up to a nearly 4,000 gold lead here, Mifflin. It's, sorry, nearly just over 3,000 gold, not 4. That's, don't do math on cast.
You're a cup half full type of guy.
Yeah, I like the chances of building this lead, right? This has been steadily building up for the past 18 minutes. Hex Mambo still without a line on that kill bar. So, need to start getting themselves together here.
Yeah, Johnny has gone for a farm-heavy build, so your Nemesis isn't really hitting her power spikes just yet as she finished up this heavy mace. Then your jungler is going to have similar levels of aggression that Sada Dragon's able to afford you. Again, Deathwalker is integral to the team fight of Hex Mambo. We haven't seen either Soul Laner get involved just yet either. I would argue this game hasn't started yet. I mean,
We're still waiting.
We're still waiting for the 5-on-5 engagement because both of these drafts are built around that. That is what both of these teams are looking for. Gold Fury might be the catalyst to force that engagement, as the Oracles will go over to Yomi Tanuki, so vision advantage to them, as well as Sentry Wards all the way around it. kind of indicates to me that the Order side would love to force yet another fight. As long as they can keep the neutral objectives, Pyromancer and Gold Fury, desynced, it's going to make it that much easier for Yomi Tanuki to take both in the future with superior burn. Zeros takes a fair deal of damage here. Sada Dragon whiffs everything. Had he connected Sickle and Unravel, maybe we see a little bit more, maybe enough poke that they're willing to step up to the Gold Fury. Looks to me like Tanuki are just waiting for a pick, trying to poke and prod and create some space for themselves. But I still am just waiting for these Soul Laners to get out of that lane and get involved on the map.
Well, Mifflin, my watch is going off at the moment. It's telling me it's been 15 minutes since we were talking about
Give it 10
Snatty.
seconds.
And what time he's going to be effective. And the Gold Fury is getting started here. So we're going to have a look and see if those Soul Laners are going to make a rotation over. It doesn't look like they are. Meanwhile, Trixtank, the only one stepping up here. Johnny is going to hit Tripno with that Retribution. And the damage isn't quite going to be there. Still wrapping around, looking for a little bit more on this engagement. But Hex Mambo, once again, don't want to keep chasing here.
Yeah, Yomi Tanuki are just pulling Hex Mambo across the map by their ears. They are not dictating the pace, Hex Mambo that is. They haven't quite been aware of when these objectives are going to start. And Yomi Tanuki, now with Pyromancer and Gold Fury, have just slipped them away without too much fight back. Hex Mambo nearly is able to chase out, are able to force some of those relics defensively from Yomi Tanuki, the Heavenlies along those lines. Tripno able to disengage with the help of those relics. But again, Hex Mambo just struggling to find their initiation. Trixtank struggling to get effective use of the root from Terra. It really is. And it's crazy to say. I think this game is going to be dictated by these Soul Laners once they decide to rotate out. Both are going to act as primary initiators for their team, and that's when we're going to start to see the strengths pushed of the composition. But that said, these Soul Laners are rotating into vastly different games. Once Snatty leaves, he's like, oh, my team's 5K up. If I land a pluck, somebody's going to die. Deathwalker rotates out, he's like, oh, we're 5K down. If I find a three-man Cataclysm, do you guys have enough damage to follow up on that? So it's going to be a very different dynamic. Yomi Tanuki, core 4 of the center to left-hand side, have done a great job of creating a situation where Snatty can rotate in and feel confident in his squad's ability to follow up on his initiations.
And once again, Mifflin, we're seeing the stacking of the trebuchets here on the left-hand side. Both teams have one. It's just all about when they're going to decide to use it. Wouldn't be surprising to see them wait until one of these teams decides they want to try and go for that Fire Giant, make sure that they have some of that extra pressure pushing the lane furthest away, which coincidentally is what makes that leftmost Phoenix the most powerful Phoenix in the game.
Yeah, you can use it essentially as a mini Oni Fury Wave, just helping you out and create some sort of pressure on the map. But with both being available, I think Hex Mambo could just send theirs out at the exact same time and not have to concern themselves and instead rotate in a true 5-on-5 engagement around that Fire Giant. Pyromancer has rejoined the Realm of the Living, and you got to think Yomi Tanuki would love to head on over immediately. We're already level 20 for both Soul Laners, 0-0-0, goose eggs across all 6 of those numbers between those two. It's time, okay? It's time. I was 2 minutes off. That's on me. It's time. Soul Laners need to get involved. Both of these teams need these guys. Well, maybe Yomi Tanuki doesn't need Snatty because they've been doing so well on their own. Hex Mambo, though, definitely need Deathwalker.
Well, they might not have him for much longer. Trying to get aggressive on to the Geb are Yomi Tanuki, but not quite able to trap him into that water wall is Elion this time around. That is a big objective fight for them. Blinking in double Cataclysm is going to start this one off. Zero straight up into the house, trying to throw up this damage. Hydrogen already forced to use that airstrike with the beads. It's going to stop him from getting clapped out, but Johnny's right here in the back, but instantly his health gets melted, and he's forced to run away. Tanukis have yet again done it, Mifflin. This team's disengage is off the charts.
It is, but they didn't get the objective first this time, so Hex Mambo, while Yomi Tanuki are licking their wounds, will have to be able to pull this Pyromancer. Dropped low, Leon standing nearby, going to keep it interesting, but not that much, because Hex Mambo are able to take it for themselves. Looking at the cooldowns, Sada Dragon and Tripno hold on to their ultimates, whereas Hex Mambo have expended every single one of their own. Relics largely equalize a decent amount of parity there. Zeros, on the other hand, has maintained both of his beads and Aegis available to this Baba Yaga, and Deathwalker, who had initiated that fight with a Blink ultimate, is only still missing the Blink ultimate, already available yet again. And that's a very different look at the initiations and the engagements. That's the first fight where Hex Mambo was able to get something rolling. Deathwalker with a blink-in double Cataclysm is exactly what Hex Mambo had needed. And it rears its head. If Hex Mambo were 5k up, or even at that point, maybe a double Cataclysm is all it takes to get them the Fire Giant. But because Deathwalker rotates into a losing battle, an uphill battle, even in making such a large, impactful play, the only pay dirt you hit is Pyromancer.
And it's just not that big of a swing for Mambo, but it could be a little bit of a momentum shifter here. Mambo have been on the back foot basically this entire game, and maybe getting that small win under their belts will help them get back into that driver's seat. But for now, Yomi Tanukis, I don't think are too concerned about that small advantage that Mambo just got off of them. The Pyromancer, in the grand scheme of things, not going to be all that important. But Mifflin, I mean, we've been talking a lot about crit today. Deathwalker getting aggressed on here in the Fire Giant pit. Dragon's doing a lot of damage here. Johnny on his way in, and Snaddy's going to throw him away. They don't want to deal with the Nemesis, and Elion making his way over as well, potentially looking to separate this team fight as well. Snaddy looking up towards that buff camp, while the rest of Hex Mambo, just a little bit split up, are going to watch Tanuki's run away.
Man, Snaddy's cooldown reduction is going off the charts right now. Great sustain, great ability to just continually initiate these fights, and then stripping away the ultimate from Deathwalker has removed that one saving grace from Hex Mambo. Deathwalker's ultimate is what nets Mambo a win in a team fight now. Well, it's already halfway back up, but having had it removed created an opportunity where Tanuki could have gotten aggressive, but Snaddy overcommits slightly, gets his HP dropped pretty low, doesn't want to continue walking into Hex Mambo's side of the map, so the aggression will fizzle from there. 26 minutes in, Fire Giant has got to be the eye for both of these teams. I say that as Leon and his ADC start to approach the Primal Fury. But that's, you know, that's just the first step in a Fire Giant.
For sure.
You know, so I'm still right.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're still on the waiting screen, right? We're still waiting for the game to
No,
start.
we're in there. We're stuck in it.
Well, we have begun now?
Yes.
You've officially said that this game has begun.
I think so. The solo laners have gotten into a team fight.
Okay.
And that is
That's
it.
the definition.
I think so.
Okay. So the game isn't officially begun until both solo laners have, what, landed a hit, been in a fight? What's the definition?
Rotated out of their lane, I would say. Once they're starting to get involved on the map and playing with the rest of the squad, that seems to be the case in 9-5. That's when the game really starts to pick up its pace. The early portions dedicated largely to creating that separation and creating and setting the stage for these objective dances. Otherwise, yeah, I would argue the majority of the game from up until that point is just like early.
Fair enough. The Fire Giant here in the early stages of the beginning of this game, 27 minutes in, is looking like something both of these teams are interested in. Though surprisingly, Mifflin, neither of these teams have sent their left trebuchet forward as Tanukis look to pull this FG. It is, of course, just a bait for the fight, though. Snaddy going straight in. Dragon trying to get some damage, but Ekram is able to find the Bifrost out of there. Snaddy expends the ultimate to try and create a little bit of space. That is going to be one less ultimate for the Tanukis going into this fight, but Zeros gets plugged back in, and landing straight down on him is a Dragon, but he's going to get hit by Johnny's ultimate. Now he's so far up without a paddle, and he's going to be the first casualty of this engagement, though Trix Tank looks like he could be right behind him, but some beautiful peel from the rest of his team is going to make sure he's out fine. Hydrogen cannot say the same, though, as Ekram puts him down into the ground. Tripno up here against 3, just trying to do as much damage as he possibly can, but he's going to be the third. Snaddy and Elion left standing, and surely they have to try and do something here.
Man, my heart goes out to Snaddy in that team fight. He lands a pluck onto Zeros. Zeros beats midair, a little bit late on it, but it simply does not matter. Dragon overcommits himself and loses his life as Trix Tank baits out Snaddy yet again. No pluck available for about 2 more seconds. Now it's back up. He's just fine.
Luckily, at least
maybe not.
Maybe not. Johnny blinking in, trying to find some damage onto Snaddy. He's definitely the one to be able to do it, but look at those Riptides. Elion makes sure his solo laner is out safe.
He does. Deathwalker was not willing to let it go. I suppose you build up a good deal of animosity after staring down a Sobek for 25 entire minutes and would really have liked to have seen him fall, but simply not the case this time around. Hex Mambo with Fire Giant on all 5 of their belts can finally start up this siege. 2 tier 1s still standing and 3 tier 2s between Hex Mambo and the exposed birds of the Yomi Tanuki. Siege potential pretty high, I'm thinking, for Hex Mambo. The initiation, or the efficacy of their initiation, is so much stronger in these simplified fights. The tower range is exactly where Deathwalker wants his enemies. If you're all stacked up inside of a tier 2 or inside of a Phoenix, Cataclysm's going to come a lot more easily and a lot more naturally. So keep your eyes on Deathwalker. 30 seconds left on his blink. That should be around the time Hex Mambo would like to set up their fight, and any team comp that does not have a traditional mage in it is going to struggle mightily on base defense. You don't have your standard AoE damage, you don't have the great ability to keep your minion waves out, so in having an ADC for your mid laner, Tripno, playing this Apollo, it's going to be very difficult for them to poke out Hex Mambo, who are now benefiting from similar levels of sustain that Yomi Tanuki are. You've got the Terra heal, Fire Giant HP 5 for every single member, and only the Yamoja on the other side.
And I think it's really interesting that we haven't seen Tripno really take advantage of this ultimate just yet to get in to these fights earlier on. While now, here we are 30 minutes in the game, and Hex Mambo are staring down the left side Phoenix. The Trebuchet is finally activated, only to be instantly met with death. Goodbye, Trebuchet. But Hex Mambo's Trebuchet is on the way down here as well, and this is what Tanukis have to be careful for. This thing can do so much damage to those structures, and they really need to clear this one out. But, I mean, Mifflin, if you thought that having to fight off an Oni wave from your tower was difficult, this is even harder. Blinking Forward Deathwalker finds Hydrogen with the Cataclysm, but he gets locked in. The Phantom already popped now by Hex Mambo, looking to get them out. Dragon on the right-hand side, trying to divert a little bit of attention away from the bird, but Tanuki call it quits and give it up.
Synced initiation between these soul laners. Blink forward from Deathwalker met by a dash from Snatty. Snatty able to zone off Zeros and E-Chrome, so despite Deathwalker connecting with a high priority target in Hydrogen, was still not quite able to have the follow-up needed, but does at least strip away the beads from this Jingwei. So the next round of Cataclysms should be a little bit more effective. Hex Mambo, though, I'm sure not too concerned with how that one pans out. Left side Phoenix falls with very little fight back from Yomi Tanuki. Tier 2 tower in mid goes the same way of the Phoenix, and Hex Mambo have exposed the base of the Tanuki. Only one tier 2 tower still standing, and how long would it be standing? Well, until Hex Mambo decides to take it. It is very low HP. Primal Fury, well, the same could be said of it. Doubt we see anyone from the Tanuki rotate through. The only one who could is Tripno, and as you said, hesitant to use that ultimate.
They've started from a bad situation, but are now in a position of match point. Hex Mambo have swapped that lead around to about 4,000 gold in their favor, and now are only really one good team fight away from securing this one out. Mifflin, we've already talked that Yomi Tanuki don't have great base defense, so what's the way out of this for them?
Don't fight on your own base. Fight in neutral territory. That is legitimately the answer. Have Tripno push out the left side of the map. Once the Fire Giant gets pulled, then you can look to ult over and try and put up a defense there. I think Yomi Tanuki very much so need to take a fight in the jungle. Inside of your own base, we saw it. They were struggling to deal with a Trebuchet. They were struggling to keep the minion waves out. Don't reprise that situation. Don't allow Hex Mambo to take another fire, especially considering this one is going to be enhanced, barreling back towards the earth in about 30 or so seconds. Hex Mambo, though, have got themselves some pretty decent advantages. Vision, I think, maybe the most important as of now. Keep your eyes on Johnny. Should be able to clear out a couple more. And Yomi Tanuki, they'll find themselves in a tough position.
Zeros could be in some trouble here, but it's definitely going to be Dragon.
What is that?
Deletion is what that was. Gets absolutely wrecked, and on the right-hand side, Snatty could be in a similarly bad position here. Ekrom, able to do just so much damage to the Crocodile. Blinking forward is Deathwalker, looking to slow down the Croc for as long as he can. Johnny on his way over. Snatty plucks a minion, and that's going to be the end of the road for him.
Yeah, Yomi, Tanuki, man, they have just been dismantled. A series of unfortunate events. Sada Dragon lines up in a 1v1 against Zeros, loses it. Zeros transforms into his empowered state, and Sada Dragon says, no, I want to stay here. This seems pretty good to me. I'll just stick in and apply some auto attacks. He dies. A rotation from Johnny confirms the kill. Wasn't really necessary. I feel like Zeros had that one on lock. Snatty, unfortunately, caught out on the right-hand side of the map, and that best-case scenario of 5v5 in neutral territory has gone out the window. The last base defense didn't look so good, and that was before Phoenix had already fallen and before Fire Minion Waves were already working their way into the base. Now Hex Mambo with Enhanced Fire Giant on 5 will be in a 5 versus 4 for the next 20 seconds.
Dire straits for Tanuki as they fight for what could be the first nail in their way home. They lose this one, they are going to have to do the reverse sweep to stop themselves from going into that lower bracket. Mambo finishes off the last Phoenix. Now Deathwalker turning around, looking to find some damage onto Elion, but instead he's going to take a decent chunk from Tripno. It's going to delay them for a moment, Mifflin, but it's looking hard.
It is. That Titan is not much of a defense point for Yomi Tanuki. In fact, I think the Tanuki would be best served by not allowing Hex Mambo into the base whatsoever. If Zeros is allowed to channel his ultimate inside the base of the Tanuki, the Titan will fall expeditiously. Hex Mambo hovering nearby. Left side Phoenix respawning very shortly. Fire Minion Wave at their heels, and it's Deathwalker in first.
Rolling in, looking for some aggression. The blink should be available for him in just a couple seconds here. Blinking forward is Natty, looking to find the pluck onto Ekron, but it's not going to be successful this time around. Down under the water he goes, and already the ultimate from Zeros coming out, trying to find the damage onto Tripno, but nothing successful just yet. Mambo, though, should be able to find one kill here. Snatty sent through the 9 realms, and he's going to land into certain demise now in a 4-man situation. Yomi Tanuki have to defend against the combined force of Hex Mambo, but no ultimates available for them now. And look at the damage from Hydrogen.
Yeah, no ultimates available except for Tripno and Hydrogen, and Tripno's is worthless in this scenario, so only one, the air strike from the Jingwei, is a saving grace.
In comes Deathwalker looking for the CC, while the rest of Hex Mambo look to barrage the Titan with damage, and with a kill onto Hydrogen, ladies and gentlemen, this should be game number 1 in favor of Hex Mambo.
Hex Mambo cannot keep getting away with this. This is twice now today where Hex Mambo said, we are not interested in your early game phase. First 15, 20 minutes of the game, go ahead, you play it. We'll see you at the 30-minute mark, and it has worked for them every single time. There are multiple avenues to beating this style of play. You can either draft for late game and try and play their match, play their game, and just do it better, or you go for overwhelming aggression throughout the early. This was a draft where Sada Dragon had the position where he could be that overwhelming aggression, but we didn't see a whole lot from the Osiris early on, and by the time the team fights had started, once these cylinders had rotated out, Hex Mambo wasn't losing those team fights.
It also just felt like, you know, this Apollo was saving his ult for next game. Like
He used it once and got a kill.
I think we saw the Apollo ult one time.
The duo.
Things need to change for the Yomi Tanuki if they are going to be able to pull it back for game number 2, which is exactly what we're going to see after this.
Hey, wait, what did it win?
You win the respect.
You're telling me an alien wore this?
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, that was a good cut.
Messaging him to mute.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course, and I can probably watch a stream on the side.
Content's gonna look good.
Pretty good, pretty good.
to SMITE Masters, brought to you by our good friends over at Alienware, who continue to be a sponsor for us here in Season 9 of the SPL. And a big shout out to Alienware. Make sure that you're following them on their social media, on their Twitter and their Instagram at Alienware. And also go to alienwarearena.com to see all the cool things they have in store for you guys, any kind of giveaways and whatnot that they've got going on there. Our pros and the players here in the studio are all playing on those Aurora Ryzen 10 desktops, some of the top-of-the-line PCs, way better than anything I've got. Trust me when I say something like that. If you want to get your hands on one of those PCs, make sure that you go over to their website and give that one a look. Thank you so much to Alienware for being here, a continued sponsor in Season 9 of the SPL. It's J-Mac. I got Trelly with me as we get ready to dive into the breakdown of game number 1, which is pretty easily summarized by what the casters had at the end, which was nothing happened for like 25, 30 minutes. We had like 5 kills going to the 31-minute mark, and then everything just kind of explodes all at once.
Yeah, less of a dive in, more so just dipping a toe into a shallow pool. It was literally 0-2 until about 27, 28 minutes. And then this Hex Mambo draft, which is completely their style, by the way. This is not something new. This is sort of what the Hex Mambo love to do, is play for that late game. Zeros on this Baba Yaga was doing so much damage. The stacking build really comes online once you get 6 items. And then you think, oh, I'm a jungler. I can dive the mage. We just saw what happens when Sad Dragon tries to dive a Baba Yaga with no beads and no jump. Still, you're just doing way too much.
I mean, you can see right here as you were highlighting, it was 27 minutes, it was 2-0, and then all of a sudden it turns to a 2-3 swing. Hex Mambo are able to start picking up some of these objectives, which is largely unseen for pretty much the entirety of this early game. A couple of Gold Furies kind of popping themselves around here. But I really do think this Baba Yaga is becoming a problem, but it then warrants the question, Charlie, is this Baba Yaga worth something that's banning away from Zeros? I mean, we see Kumakarn got banned away from Trix Tank earlier on just because you don't want to deal with that. Is this Baba Yaga becoming a problem to where you want to ban this one out?
I mean, that's the thing. It seems like the Tanuki wanted to try and match that late game presence with Double Hunter, but they just had no answers for Baba. If your jungle cannot find a solo kill onto the enemy mid in the later stages of the game, it's time to rethink the draft, I have to imagine. Sad Dragon played pretty well. I mean, all of the Tanuki played very well leading up to that point, but I think Mifflin said it best, saying, either play their late game and play it better, which didn't happen, or you got to draft some early aggression and not let them get online. What does a Geb solo do without Bumba's Hammer? Not much. So try and counter that with some early aggression. I have to imagine that's what's on the brain.
Now, got to give credit where it's due on the side of the Tanuki. Elion on this Yamoja, a pick that we probably were not expecting Elion to ever really break out here, you know, kind of newer to the support role, especially new to the support role for this team. But he looked good on this pick. Those first 2 team fights, the one in duo and the one in mid, I'm just going to say, Elion kind of carried those team fights. His placements of the walls and those riptides really showing his stuff on this god.
Yeah, I got to be honest. When I saw the Yamoja locked in, I was kind of like, that doesn't seem like an Elion god to me. You know, we have seen the Sylvanas, we saw the Xing 10, but Yamoja, very high skill cap character. The support mains that have been playing for years still sometimes stay away from that Yamoja, but he did look very solid on it. So I don't think that has to go by the wayside, but some sort of added early style pressure, maybe not the double hunter, maybe just one, and then like some high level mage in that role, but something that can stop the Hex Mambo from putting their feet on the brakes and saying, we're not going to fight until 28 minutes and we're not going to get penalized for it.
And it wasn't for lack of trying. The Tanuki definitely were trying to get involved early on. We saw the team fight in the duo, the team fight in mid, a couple of skirmishes here and there, but we really didn't see anything truly break out until that 27-minute mark. So if that's the style of play the Mambo are going to continue to do, and it probably is, I don't see any reason why they would want to change that up. I think both you and Mifflin are right to highlight that there needs to be more of an answer from Tanuki. Either hit the ground running as quick as possible, draft a bunch of early game gods to really dominate and get a big lead, or draft towards that late game hyperscaling.
I will say, one pick that Sad Dragon goes to a lot that would do extremely well into that Baba Yaga would be this Kali. You can stun out the Cauldron, easily get that dash down, and then just pop your ult to immune the knockup from Home Sweet Home and just shred through the Warlock staff. That seems like a pretty easy way to go about this, but we'll have to see if it doesn't get banned away if they try to go for some sort of aggression. Because again, late game, there could be answers to the comp that Hex Mambo just drafted. It just seemed like there was no way for the Tanuki to break through. It was really just that one team fight around fire. That's all it took for Mambo to grab the lead and just roll with it. So again, focus on the early game, and or I think throwing a different jungler in the mix would help out in the later stages.
Being up 1-0 in this first set for Hex Mambo of our best of threes is definitely going to be nice as we jump into picks and bans for game number 2. It makes things interesting. Neither team leaves if they lose this one out. They still have another opportunity to make it to day 3 of play. But if you can find the win in this set, it means that your day is done for now. You don't have to worry about waiting a couple more sets before that you play. You don't have to try and battle against the fatigue that would come immediately after there, especially for these EU guys as it starts getting later in the day, especially for them being on the other side of the pond for some of these players out there. You definitely don't want to have to be playing into the depths of the night.
I'm not surprised to see the get ban, which is what I'm seeing here now. That has to tell me that Kumba's not going to be on the radar, right? If you're banning the Geb and the Mercury, I really don't think you're going to the Kumba last slot. So it will be the Baba Yaga. They said we could try and counter this Baba, or we can just remove it from play and not have to deal with it. Seems to be a smart way to go about it. And Mambo, they also running back the Uller and the Chernobog bans. We saw that. But this time, Yamoja trying to shut down some of Leon's presence and just control. We did highlight it. The Tanuki obviously didn't look great towards that later stage of the game, but early on, it seemed like Leon looked very solid on that pick.
I'm a little bit surprised that Kleena wasn't the first pick here for the side of the Yomi Tanuki, just about the fact that this god has 100% pick ban rate up until this point, just about. Even though there's been mixed success on the god, to say the least, it's very surprising to me. Maybe no surprise the fact that it was Jing Wei that got picked over that god there. So it'll be Jing Wei first for the Tanuki. And with that Kumbhakarna left open, Hex Mambo, they're going to snag that one up right away.
It seems like Kleena's not really a Deathwalker style pick, and if you're not going to give it to jungle, maybe you don't have to first pick it in the first place. So they're saying, hey, Johnny might not try and first pick this. We can just leave it open and pick it if we really need to. Nemesis is going to be the option, so it is still available. If you want to try to get snatty on something that you're not playing for that later stage, the Bumbus Hammer like upgrade, you could still pick that if that's going to be your option, but also maybe just trying to match some of those cooldowns in late game team fight presence. We've seen the Tanuki. They like this double hunter draft, and that just means Kleena's not going to complement it that well.
2 options left for the Yomi Tanuki as they wait to decide what to square up against this Kumbhakarna Nemesis. Kumba, with the changes to his mez, has definitely become a little bit more potent against the double hunter, especially if you can break that mez a little bit earlier on. Nemesis known to be that tank shredder, so it kind of leaves a couple of question marks as to how you want to go about this draft. With only the Jing Wei locked over towards that dual lane, still plenty of options available. If you're the Yomi Tanuki at this point right now, you see Kumba, Nem, I mean, what are some of the immediate picks that you want to try and grab as a counter to those gods?
Fafnir, right away. I mean, you have double hunter. It's going to be buffing you both. You get the Dragon Breath to shred through Kumba passive, stun out, but it looks like just going to the Ecliptic Sylvanas Leon pick. We know he loves hitting these poles. We know that he can. That's the thing about Sylvanas, right? If you're not hitting these consistent poles, why are you even picking it? Why not just pick something else that's a little bit easier? There's plenty of Guardians with knockups, but if you are hitting these poles, that's going to be the difference maker. Usually people don't expect it to be hit. They don't pre-beads it. You still get displaced, and it's going to give you a lot of presence in this early game. And it looks like Baron is going to be the solo option, so probably tired of sitting there, Sobek versus Geb in the solo lane, just smacking around, wanting to get a little bit more presence. I like the Baron solo here pick as well for Snatty.
I mean, Baron solo with Bumbus Hammer might just be one of the most obnoxious things for cooldown resets and damage and CC applications you could ask for. So Yomi Tanuki grabbing that one, so a little bit of their front line locked in. Meanwhile, Rom on the other side will be the answer on the side of the Hex Mambo. Maybe a little surprising considering how popular Heimdall is with those players. Chernobog, who's been rising up, but at the same time, Rom has also been showing a lot of relevancy up so far into 9.5.
Yeah, that's just a safe hunter that can deal with Jing Wei. Maybe not try and 1v1. There could be some easy snipes off the airstrike if you're trying to follow up with that, but also just someone who can hard carry late game and gets through laning phase quite well. We are going to see the AMC banned away. The Hex Mambo, no, they're still looking for a hunter in that mid lane, most likely, so trying to ban away Chiron and AMC, going to be a solid bet. The Tanuki, though, they recognize that Zero still has not picked a mage. They banned away the Baba, and now they're going to have to throw Thoth and Merlin in the mix, both characters that are going to be doing a ton of damage late game. And we saw Zero's at the top of the damage charts pretty much all last game, and all of these characters could do some serious work if you're playing for level 30, which we already know Hex Mambo is.
We did see Neath mid yesterday as an option if Mambo decide that they want to go with a hunter mid of their own. That would also maybe take something away from the side of the Yomi Tanuki. Zero's also apt to go towards that pick whenever he decides to go for an ADC towards that lane. But still a little bit of time left for Mambo to decide. They need their mid laner. They still need that solo laner. Potentially, Kumbhakarna still could slot that way over for Deathwalker. We can't dismiss the fact that we do see Kumba in 2 different lanes at this point. but it's mostly Mo. I'll correct myself. We see Kumakarn in solo lane with Mogao, and that's about the end of that.
I mean, I just have to chuckle the fact that Kumba is not only in the game, but being tossed up for 2 different roles, and we have to keep our eye on it because, again, we have not seen too much of it. But we're going to see even more of it this game, and it is a solid counter into that Kali that we mentioned already for Sada Dragon. Anytime Kali blinks in and tries to go into the destruction and try and wreak havoc on your team, you can sort of just up pick, uppercut, mez. There's a lot of different ways to deal with it, and it seems like Bumba's Hammer Hades versus Bumba's Hammer Baron. That's what the matchup is going to entail here, trying to stay away. Baron usually gets some pretty solid pressure, but I don't think anyone really out-pressures Hades right now.
And I just remember the days where it was double mage in the solo lane, maybe like a mage versus assassin, and now we've returned to that in a sense. You're definitely not building, the burstier style mages that we were more used to way back in the day, but Baron versus Hades in the solo lane matchup. Tell me a little bit about that matchup there, because that's definitely not one that we get to see very often.
Well, we saw this sort of Baron solo build start in the EU SEC, where it was the Bumba's Hammer into a lot of mitigation with the Oni Hunter's Garb and the late game, just sowing a foul, that sort of thing. Hades was also in that conversation, so anyone that can make use out of the mitigations. I'm going to stop what I'm saying right now, because we're not seeing double Hunter anymore. They've completely flipped the script, and they've locked in Agni Circuit. So I think the Tanuki did a complete 180 on their draft and said, hey, let's not try and let this comp get to late game. Let's try to find some early aggression. Who finds early aggression the most? Circuit's definitely in the conversation.
That's not Chithens. That's Billy. Hey, Billy, how's it going, man? Hope you're doing good back there. Let's go back over this, though. Agni, very interesting got to talk about in the mid lane. Circuit, we haven't seen a whole lot of her ever since her change. But Nuwa going to be popping back out here. I remember back at the start of Season 7, we introduced all these new starter items, and they had a Conduit gem into, was it Archmage's gem, Nuwa. That was the terror of the town in all of the games that I've been hearing about. And then we never saw Nuwa. We never got to see any kind of gameplay come out from her. And now, with the changes to Archmage, to where it only procs on enemy gods, I was kind of waiting to see if we would see some Nuwa here. How do you feel about Nuwa to round out this Mambo draft?
I mean, this whole season, Zeros has been holding on to the Nuwa pick. He's whipped it out a few times, and the one thing I can say is that he has a very annoying Nuwa playstyle where essentially he sends the fog and the minions to wave, goes to back camps. He'll look over and maybe like the enemy mid will rotate over, and he'll say, I'll ult, but I'm going to keep farming. And then you look up, and Zeros is level 12, and you're like level 8. And you're like, when did this happen? I've been clearing every wave. He's just been all over the map. So Zeros is going to pick this and just power farm and help out his team with the fire shards. It's a smart way to go about it.
Lining up against the Yomi Tanuki now need to win this game in order to keep themselves alive in this set. That way they don't have to go down to the elimination round, try and find themselves a much easier path to getting towards day 3 to join those other North American teams that are out there. For the Yomi Tanuki, is this now, we see the Mambo, they're definitely much more towards a later scaling. Rum, Kumakarn definitely going to be powerful. Do the Tanuki have a team comp that can get them towards that late game to square off?
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. I just mentioned how Zeros doesn't want to, be up on the wave too much, trying to clear from a distance, but Agni and Circuit are going to make sure that even if he wanted to, he can't step up to the wave that freely. Agni just has so much range. Obviously, Thoth was banned away, but Agni's going to be the best option for trying to keep Nuwa away from the wave, and anytime you post up, you're getting CC'd by Circuit. That's going to be just as annoying. So trying to shut down some of that early farm and saying, hey, we know you guys like to sit back and farm for the late game. We got to put a stop to it. I think the Tanuki have shifted up the draft about halfway through, and I think it might try and, put a little stop to that farm game.
On the side of the Hex Mambo, it looks like they definitely got a little bit slower of a burn when it comes to some of these objectives. These fire giants are going to go down very quickly. These towers, though, maybe can stand up there, especially with how much extra damage the Nuwa can do out there, how much extra she can get with her basic attacks on that one. So when it comes down to this objective play, I mean, where's that opening for the Tanuki to find their way in? Does it come from this Agni more than anything?
Yeah, they're going to have some solid burn. The burst, if you can time the Meteor and the Flame Wave at the same time, it's going to do some solid burst, but you always have to be watching out for Zeros because, as you mentioned, if you are going for that Conduit Gem start, the Shining Metal can do some crazy damage. If you're exploding the minions as well, that's going to be some crazy burst. So despite the fact that both of these teams have some solid burn, I imagine, again, we have to touch on the vision. You have to always be aware of where everyone's at, and Serket could be invis at this point, so it's just going to be something that the Hex Mambo has to switch up. It's going to be a different play style from game 1 that we just saw.
I think mid lane's where I'm going to keep a lot of my eyes as far as the direct matchup goes, especially with some of the build pathing that we've been seeing here. Warlock staff has become very popular amongst the mid laners. Ethereal staff, Soul Reaver, these items become super prominent just because of getting that extra HP, shred and HP, takeability. I guess takeability. That's you know what? That's now a word. It is now.
Coin it. Yeah.
I'm going to coin that word, takeability, out here. So for Nuwa, do these items really seem to mesh well with herself and the rest of her kit?
I will say, I can't imagine that Zeros isn't going to build the Warlocks, but I don't like it. When I go Nuwa, and when I think of Nuwa, I think of let's build every single item that's going to hurt people from a distance, right? Divine Ruin, applying global anti-heal to everyone on the map. That's always going to be great. Soul Reaver, E-Staff, Soul Gem, anything that can proc on her ult, you're going to get some solid value off of. But Warlock Sash is just a little bit too necessary right now. You need to be able to survive, and you get some great stats for it. If no one's going to be trying to fight you, why not just build a Warlock Sash? So I do imagine we'll see a Warlock's. E-Staff is going to be very easy to proc with Fire Shards, as well as the Soul Reaver. We've seen so much HP, so I have to imagine we'll see that sort of build path for Zeros.
Now, Charlie, I'll put you a little bit on the spot at this point here. We're looking at an 0-1 Tanuki right now. They need to find a win up here against Hex Mambo. We know that Hex Mambo wants to take it to these late games. Do you think that Hex Mambo is going to close this one out as a 2-0, or you think that Tanuki have the fight back to bring this to a 3?
Well, you really did put me on the spot there. Well, Tanuki looked great last game, right?
Right.
And I think their comp did favor the later stage of the game. So if the Tanuki come out swinging, as they did last game, and find a Fire Giant pull before, like, I don't know, 23 minutes, I think they could take this. But if they don't get an FG by 24 minutes, they're really going to have to play pristinely, because Hex Mambo, most of their games go that long for a reason. They are used to playing at that stage of the game.
And you really put a timer on them. 23, 24 minutes to grab that Fire Giant for the Tanuki, and then pretty much other than that, it's game over at that point.
I didn't say you're going to lose. I just said
it's going to be rough.
I said you have to be playing pristine.
Got to be on your top of your game in this one. That's what everybody's got to be, at the top of their game, especially because, again, this is only the first half of this week. This is just the SCC team so far. So if you're having these struggles up against some of your likewise opponents, it's going to be even worse when you go up against some of the SPL teams, the Valkyries, the Scarabs. We'll be awaiting the SCC teams at the end of the week. And then, should any of these SCC teams make it into week number 2, Trelly, they've got to go against the top 6 of the SPL.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting series of events, but right now, I'm just thinking about this draft because we've put, I don't mean to put Tanuki on a timer, but we just saw, I feel like they got close to a dream draft last time, and again, they have to switch up the play style. I know they have the brains to be able to do it. Obviously, they did, bring in El Leon as the shot caller for a reason, and I know he's not sitting there just saying, what are we going to do, guys? He's got a plan, and I think, again, it really did seem like they sort of shifted their draft as the picks and bans went. You saw the Jingwei start that we've seen time and time again, and then the Yemoja was taken away, so like, we'll go to the Vanis. Okay, now we've got a solid duo lane, and then I think Snatty probably spoke up and was like, guys, I didn't feel like I had enough impact on the Sobek. Like, I did as much as I could, and it still wasn't enough. I need something else, and they're going to go for the Baron.
Before we do jump into this game, we will take a very brief break. Whenever we come back, we'll get you guys set up for game number 2. Hello, everybody, and welcome back into the SMITE Masters Tournament. Still getting ready to jump into our second game of this set, or our third set of the day between the Yomi, Tanuki, and the Hex Mambo. A little bit of tech issues, making sure to get these players into their games. That way they can be ready to go and face off here. Because once again, a winning team, they move on. They go to day number 3. Losing team, they've got to wait around a little bit longer to await their opponents of the next set to see who will face off, who will go home, and who will join the winner of this one. In order to move on, it's J-Mac. I still got Trelly joining me on the desk so we can talk a little bit more about this one before we jump into the game. You know, kind of that last ideas and looks at the draft. Zero's going for this Nuwa, probably the thing that I'm going to be looking at the most between the Nuwa and the Agni in this mid lane. This is sure to be at least a very interesting matchup, Trelly.
Yeah, we already mentioned that this play style that Zeros goes for is usually just farm as much as possible, send the clay soldiers in the fog to clear the wave, and then just sprint to back camps. Take as much farm as possible, just sort of be a sponge for XP, and then you look up and you're behind and you don't even realize how it happened. So it's really annoying as well because you don't have to commit yourself to these team fights to help out your squad. Nuwa can just ult and hit all 5 members. So it's an annoying play style to deal with, and the Tanuki, if they've done their homework, we'll probably see that he's done it before.
Yeah, Tanuki definitely need to play a little bit more towards the late game because that's where the Hex Mambo, and in reality, all of the European region kind of likes to play is towards this late game. These 30, 35-minute games are no stranger to EU, and that was before we even got towards this meta of 9.5, where that's become almost the baseline at this point. Now with these games, we've been pushing upwards closer to 40-plus minutes, and it's definitely going to take a toll on these players, because even yesterday, we were getting up till 6, 7 o'clock for some of these guys here in the studio. That was already starting to take a bit of mental tax. We'll see who's going to come out on top in game number 2. Hex Mambo, Yomi, Tanuki, who is going to take it?
A final chance here for the Tanukis to keep themselves out of that lower bracket, and it's all to play for here for both of these teams. Mambo only one away for securing themselves a position into the next round of our bracket here. Mifflin, how you doing today, man? This game, we've gone from maybe the most boring solo to maybe the most interesting solo we've had all week.
Interesting, I suppose the correct word. Are you using, like, Merriam-Webster's interesting, or are you using Caster interesting?
Well, okay, what's explain to me the difference.
Merriam-Webster says it's, intriguing. It's a synonym for intriguing, like it builds intrigue, you're more curious about it, you want to learn more. And then when casters say interesting, they mean that's bad. Interesting decision to up down there, you know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna say this is an interesting Merriam-Webster.
Who?
Merriam-Webster.
Okay, Webster, understood. Yeah. Okay.
It's an interesting line. We've seen both of these characters be played, but not against each other. And
we sure have.
I wanna ask you what your opinion of this matchup is.
I'm not the most well-versed in the Baron Samedi up against Hades, but if I had to guess, Hades is going to have a pretty significant advantage for the first 4 or so levels. Wave clear going to favor him mightily as well as sustain, but once Baron Samedi gets a couple more points in his second ability, should be able to match up relatively evenly I doubt there's a kill over there, though. It would come down to a pretty wild misplay for a 1v1 to happen. Ganks, though, Ganks certainly could, and, well, Baron Somni's a little bit less mobile than Hades.
I will say both of these characters do have a lot of similarities in their kits, right? They have heals, they have...
Both magic.
They're both magic men.
Purple outfits.
Both of their ultimates have a suck. You know, Baron sucks towards you, you know, in like a cone. Hades is sucked towards you in a circle.
Sucked towards you in a circle.
It's like, would you describe the ability differently? How else would you describe Pillar of Agony?
Man, a funnel that you're falling
funnel.
down towards. Hydrogen taking a good deal of damage over here in the duo lane, but returned quickly onto Trick's tank as both of these teams vie and fight over minuscule positioning and slight experience advantages. I said it earlier. I'm going to call like 15 minutes. You know what? Let's play a game. Blazy.
Okay, we'll play a game.
Well, when do you think first blood happens? You give me a plus minus. So like, for example, you could say, I think it comes after 8 minutes.
Okay,
Or before 12.
I think First Blood this game comes before 6 minutes.
Before 6 minutes? I'll take that action.
I think once Santa Dragon has
You know he had 400 damage at the 12-minute mark last game.
Right, but this time he's playing a Sarkette, and if he's playing this properly, I expect as soon as he gets his ultimate up, us to see at least an attempt.
You think Sarkette is more apt to get active early
No,
than an Osiris? Okay.
that's not what I said. I'm just saying if Santa Dragon plays this how he should have been playing the Osiris, you know, Zeros is a pretty easy target to hit with the Sarkette ult, you know?
He is.
And especially when you've got Trip Note on this Agni, you can set that up from a million miles away. So I'm going to say before 6 minutes.
And I'll take the post 6 minutes as Leon steps himself forward here. That's very aggressive positioning.
Trick's tank actually in some distress here, but I think that's a little bit of an unfortunate placement of the updraft is going to help Trix get out of there. Meanwhile, though, Sada Dragon's taken that red buff for himself just as Zeros walks around the corner.
Yeah, so both of these teams, again, very similar pacing to what we saw in the previous match, and I think that favors Hex Mambo in that they are very much willing to take these games as long as they need to. Once Deathwalker's level 20 and rotates out and meets with his team, that's when Hex Mambo hits the gas. That's when they are at their happiest and at their strongest, whereas Yomi Tanuki, generally in every single set that we've seen them play so far, really are all about this laning phase.
The left-hand side, Johnny coming around, looking to find a
Surely
kill
not.
onto Elion. The tree is very immobile. The shell is going to be popped, and look at the body blocks. Ekrom going to be able to take credit for the first kill. On the side of Hex Mambo, not what I was expecting in the slightest, but I did win the game.
You did. An early rotation from Johnny to get involved. You were incorrect in your assumption that it would be Sada
I was
Dragon.
on the wrong
you know,
side,
wrong
but we
jungler.
weren't playing for who was going to get first.
No, you're
blood.
right.
We were
No,
talking
you're
about
absolutely right. I'm just a sore loser. Hex Mambo, I think, just very smart on the rotation there, trying to put some pressure onto a Sylvanas, which has generally been the answer to picks like Sylvanas, like Gab, these guys who are late-game monolithic powerhouses who generally struggle in the early. I think that's a great start for Hex Mambo to get themselves a little bit more quickly towards that late game. And do my eyes deceive me? 4 minutes in, first blood separating these two teams, and one of the largest gold leads we've seen pre-20 minutes.
Yeah, 1,500 gold separating these two. Hex Mambo definitely showing us a different kind of pace that they've been playing the rest of these games that we've seen them so far. Really being able to take control of these neutral objectives from the get-go this time around. As a side note, we did see Sada Dragon try to go in on Zeros, exactly as we thought would happen, but the beads are going to save the life of the mid laner this time around, but they are on a 130-second cooldown. Meanwhile, Sada Dragon's going to have that ultimate back up in just about 40 seconds.
That said, Zero still does have some CC immunity available to him in the ultimate, so another resource that needs to be worked through before Sada Dragon will likely be able to find a kill in the lane. Tripno just now taking over to level 6 as he has been splitting a lot more farm than Zeros has been. Notice Trick's tank will not walk into Zeros' lane. So, a significant experience advantage over towards Hex Mambo, despite having multiple red buffs now invaded. Only the first red buff goes to the Chaos team. Otherwise, Sada Dragon has been on top of this cooldown. That said, hasn't really helped out his mid laner too much, largely just keeping them equal, finding a state of parity.
So looking at this Nuwa here, I know Trelly was talking about how essential Warlock stuff is for these mid laners so far, but looks like Zeros is opting to go for that Charon's coin first. Are we expecting him to move into that Warlocks after that, or do we think it's just going to be the Charons into the normal build?
Look, I think that the possibility of Warlocks happening certainly exists. Odds are low, but never zero. That said,
never
don't,
zeros?
don't even, don't.
Well,
Zeros likes to go for Zeros builds. He's not one to pick up the Warlocks. That said, there's still plenty in the match. Tripno and Snatty moving in towards it. Going to have a good deal of survivability. But stacking HP just makes these ADCs more effective, giving over a kin size. And if you see potentially enough HP stacked up, we could even have Johnny go for a build reminiscent of what we saw from Sino, which was Golden Blade immediately into the Stone Cutting Sword, then I believe it was kin size after that. Could be we're looking at another auto attack style Nemesis.
Hydrogen takes a little bit of health here on the left-hand side. Ekram playing on this Rama, another character that we've been seeing really prominently so far this week, but Elion could be walking into a trap here, gets hit by the Nemesis ult and is in Deathwalker's Pillar of Agony. Trix Tank though up by himself. Elion still surviving for now. Deathwalker gets a lot of damage turned back onto him. Trix Tank could be in danger here. I think that should be the kill on to the Kumbhakana, but Elion still trying to outrun Johnny, who finally does use the dash away. But unless anything else happens, which this blink from Santa Dragon is looking to set up
Snatty's got him.
The root down, there's going to be the cross laser. Johnny so low, but no one able to finish that one off. Elion could be the next target, but Deathwalker doesn't quite have the damage this time around, and with a near miss onto Johnny, that is only going to be one kill for the Yomi Tanuki, but it does tie up the score.
Hex Mambo, slight overcommitment onto El Leon, Pillars of Agony plus Johnny. Were stopped by the ultimate from the Sylvanas, and then after doing so, Yomi Tanuki say, oh word, their main ultimates are down. We can just go ahead and reinitiate. A double stun from Tripno into a triple bomb onto 2 targets is just enough to turn that fight around, and Yomi Tanuki from the precipice are able to find themselves a small win in the team fight. But looking at the charts, doesn't change too much. If anything, it's Hex Mambo who come out ahead after dying.
Yeah, like, how does that even work? They aren't able to farm during all of that time. They lose someone. They aren't able to get a kill in return. How does that even work?
Hex Mambo reset to their own side of the map and cleared out jungle, whereas Yomi Tanuki were putting a lot of aggression in towards the tier 1 tower. So they just force split a minion wave in mid, while the members of Hex Mambo who were able to disengage were farming on the map. And that's generally where that XP and gold disparity will start to establish itself. That's not to say Yomi Tanuki haven't got some advantages themselves, though. Sure, it's one level for Deathwalker over Snatty, but Sada Dragon is just now starting to tie up against Johnny, who's been sitting comfortably at 8. Zeros now at level 9. There's been a slight experience gaps that have been established in favor of Yomi Tanuki, but are very quickly closing back up.
Moving now into the post. Well, this is what you would define as the mid game, right here after 8 minutes. That's
Soul Lander's rotated out. This might as well be late game.
Well, there you go. The game has started a lot earlier on this time around, and the Greater Scorpion is going to get finished up here by Hex Mambo. Still really in control of the neutral farm are the boys in the red side of your screen. Johnny looking potentially for a gank over here onto Snatty, but it's just going to be this Naga here.
Yeah, not much for him to do over there. Once Snatty starts to rotate out of the tower, then you might be able to see some ganks. Deathwalker a lot less susceptible than his contemporary Baron Samdi. Hades at least benefiting from a leap. Speaking of, Sada Dragon forced to use his own to disengage.
I don't think there's too much danger for either of these two players here. Johnny is going to get caught, though, straight back into the bomb. A little off the mark by Elion. The double dash is going to find Johnny safe for now. Elion, though, conversely, could be in a little bit of danger. The retributions come through from Nemesis, and the damage is pouring in. Finds 2 in his ultimate, but a beautiful heal from Snatty's going to keep Elion alive for now. Trix Tank, though, getting pulled back into 5. He's going to get popped by himself. The turnaround from Tanuki's is good.
Twice now, Deathwalker has rotated out of his lane, and twice now connects his ultimate onto El Leon. Both times, it's the Yomi Tanuki who win the team fight immediately afterward. So what does that learn to you? I don't know why I said it that way.
I would, away from that situation, I would take away the lesson that I should not be ulting Elion.
I think I would agree with that. Deathwalker may be dealing decent damage at this point, but not enough that Elion is going to feel threatened at all. And now as he's starting to finish up the stacks on Gauntlet of Thieves and move in towards that Spirit Robe, it's going to become even more difficult for Deathwalker to apply that damage. I think those Pillars of Agony need to be finding a different target. I know that it's very, very enticing to look towards Sylvanas because Sada Dragon's got multiple mobility abilities to escape. Tripno's got the dash. Hydrogen has got dash plus ultimate. Snatty doesn't. You would at least be able to force out Snatty's ultimate, which I suppose could be at least slightly higher value. Leon essentially only using his ultimate when he's getting hit by Deathwalker. Otherwise, we've seen one other ultimate usage from Leon, and it was a whiff towards that tier 1 mid-tower. Yeah, I think that the rotation and the idea of Hex Mambo, of having Deathwalker get involved early on, is good. It's just where they're applying that aggression.
This time is starting to run out for them, though. About halfway through their Trelli approved time limit of 23 to 24 minutes are Yomi Tanuki. And while they have been able to cut Mambo's lead in half since the last time we checked in, it is still about 1,000 gold. Sorry, never mind. It's 1,500, so it is still less than it was before. But not quite cut in half. That's my mistake.
Experience, though, has been returned in favor of Yomi Tanuki, who've got some advantages now in the jungle as well as in support. Otherwise, parity as far as levels are concerned. Hex Mambo, gold to themselves. Not often you get to see this split on the map. Speaking of on the map, Snatty maybe a little too far forward. Johnny looks at him but does not decide to engage. Curious. Snatty may have ultimate, but no beads, no heavenly, no way to deal with those slows.
There's no ultimate available for Deathwalker here. Snatty still has his. He's still got, you know, a lot of options to him. He's got a lot of HP as well with this Genji's guard. So I think it's maybe just a case of Johnny's like, maybe we can do something here, but there aren't really the tools available.
I suppose, and Johnny has not hit too significant of a power spike just yet. Golden Blade, not the largest infusion of power, does give over some movement speed, but more so is about his ability to clear out the jungle. Now looking towards Erendite, Johnny seems to be a massive fan of this style of build, but tier 2 Erendite doesn't really do a whole lot for you, so I suppose you're right in saying that Johnny just might not quite have the strength available to finish off a kill onto Snatty had he decided to engage there. That said, if we're going to talk about scaling, you got to talk about Sada Dragon's build. Transcendence in the first slot, and then immediately in towards the tank tree. Spirit Robe in second. Defensive Circuit just ain't so good anymore, but I suppose a little bit of defense, and you're not sacrificing too much power because of Transcendence in first slot. It's a different style of build. I'm curious to see how it works.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at Johnny getting pelted by Rain Fire here. Forced to use that double dash away. Snatty and Deathwalker looking to wrap around Trix Tank once again. Potentially the target here, but Snatty caught out in the jungle. Looks to try and pull Zeros back, but that is going to be the Fire Shards to get Zeros away for now. It's a big ability popped, and that is going to make Zeros a much easier target for Sada Dragon to go onto in just a moment.
It will, but he still has the beads. It's the inverse of the issue that we were talking about earlier. Lose beads, still have Rainfire. Lose Rainfire, still have beads available. So, or Fire Shards, rather. I'm sorry.
They both have fire in the
Yeah,
name. They're both from
they're
the sky.
close.
It's fine.
Yeah, we're close. Either way, Zero's still going to have a layer of safety available to him that Sada Dragon will have to concern himself with. That said, Sada Dragon probably not overly concerned about having to dedicate his own positioning or dive a little bit deeper onto Zeros because of the itemization that we're already seeing. Spirit Robe in that second slot. 14.5 minutes into the game. Gold still largely equal. Experience the exact same. The first separation I expect to see is around the Gold Fury or the Pyromancer. Generally now, Pyromancer seems to be the first POI, as it is that much easier to clear than Gold Fury. Gold Fury's got hands nowadays in 9.5, so you do not want to take that.
It didn't have hands before.
Well, oh, I'm sorry. They'll chef you up. Gold Fury will chef you up now for our European fans.
You're gonna get chefed up by the Gold Fury, and is he doing that in front of or behind Nando's?
I've no clue. You've lost me.
Right.
I'm a stateside guy.
You've expanded your whole English vocabulary with chef you up.
I like it too. It's good.
Right. I'm pretty sure that one of the first things you ever said to me was cheeky Nando's in it.
Yeah, I've surfed Twitter once or twice, and you know they like to make fun of the our friends across the pond's accents.
Sure.
But they do actually say that, right?
Well, it used to be a thing for like
You are
a
like
while.
the representative of all of the UK.
For sure. This is I am me, the posh boy from Buckinghamshire, am a accurate representation of the entirety of Britain.
Understood.
It's true.
So Cheeky Nando's is a real thing, as is the damage output already. Leon turns it around, though, with a double ultimate.
Trickstank is going to get knocked up into the sky, and Zeros takes a huge chunk of damage, still taking away from Tripno, who is getting chewed through now by Johnny. No peel away from him. Elion trying to run away. Meanwhile, Ip into the sky goes Sada Dragon, who is the last man standing in this engagement. But look at the triple knockup from Hydrogen to clean up one. Dashes forward, looking for Ellie Akrom now. Zeros is going to be the third target there. Sada Dragon picks up that one. And now Deathwalker makes his way over. Trickstank half HP. Hydrogen completely flips that on his head.
Yeah, Wind Demon plus Silver Branch, just a massive power spike with the explosive bolts as well, able to dismantle Hex Mambo. But at the end of the day, it is a 3-for-3 trade. Hex Mambo doesn't have to feel too poor about it. Unless this Pyromancer falls down, Deathwalker still has ultimate and is incredibly healthy, so I can't imagine he makes it easy for him.
But already low is the Pyromancer. It is going to get secured by the Yomi Tanuki, and instantly it looks like the disengage is what they want. He is trying. He's taking a lot of damage from that lava pool. Deathwalker, no under the floor dash available to him just yet. There it is, but the root going to get beads away. So Deathwalker should be safe for now.
But loses out on the beads, loses his ultimate, isn't able to steal away the Pyromancer. That is a massive swing for Yomi Tanuki, who had the experience advantage going into the... What? Okay. No, yeah, go ahead. They're
I was about to say, look at the healing that Deathwalker just applied to himself in Trickstank, but Yomi Tanuki looking to extend this advantage to the Fire Giant. They are so low right now in terms of their levels, and Trickstank is going to get turned on, nearly completely dead, but instead going to throw Elion up through the sky. Trickstank now maybe one or two with a beautiful pullback from Elion. Should spell the death of the Sleepy Giant, but Tripno uses his dash aggressively, and now the rest of Hex Mambo are coming in to clean up.
Snatty on the retreat, got Johnny hot on his heels as Zeros does finish off El Leon in the back line. Seems like Yomi Tanuki got a little overzealous with their call to move in towards the Fire Giant. Maybe a turnaround here as Deathwalker takes the stun from Snatty and takes his life. Johnny, credit for the kill. Only one member left of Yomi Tanuki standing, and it's Hydrogen. He's made some miracles happen in the past, but I'm not sure what he can do against 4 members of Hex Mambo. Thought maybe we'd see the Mambo move in towards Fire Giant or even potentially the Gold Fury instead, though. 2 low HP, cooldowns on respawn, already coming back up for Yomi Tanuki. So I suppose it is just a team fight win, and the gold gap that was, reestablished and equalized in the last team fight is now reestablished yet again, back in favor of Hex Mambo.
With an extra 1,000 gold on top of it to boot, 3,500 gold separates these two teams now. And as you said, Tanukis, they were right there. They had just made their way into evening this one up, but they decide to get too greedy. They take the Pyromancer. They, for some reason, think, hey, it's 16 minutes into the game. Let's go onto Fire Giant. And maybe this is, they were listening to Trelly. They knew exactly what their time limit was, and it's getting close to that 24-minute mark.
Maybe. And if it hadn't worked for them, we'd be singing their praises, talking about how they're all geniuses and,
for sure.
and maybe militaristic minds that are, the top of our generation, not unlike Sun Tzu, but instead they fell on their faces. So Yomi Tanuki, a slight stumble there, but still certainly within the realm of acceptable losses, I suppose. 3,500 gold, not that much, 20 or so minutes in. Hex Mambo, though, were about this much down in Game 1 at this portion and still were able to win out on the match. So you got to believe that they're feeling much better about their odds here. Fire Giant still available. Gold Fury has not fallen just yet. It's pretty hard to kill that thing nowadays, and it's not that valuable. By the time you're capable of doing it, you're already around that 20-minute mark, and you kind of just want Fire Giant instead.
For sure. It's wild to live in a world where Fire Giant has been considered before Gold Fury. A truly boggling statement, in my opinion.
It is, and that's just a byproduct of the new meta, the new emergent meta. These teams trying to figure out when they can find their opportunities to look towards these neutrals, and it's, I suppose, if you're going to go for an objective, might as well, if you're risking it, risk it for something worthwhile. Fire Giant seems to be the case, and when you say that, you mean a cookie, right?
You risk it for the biscuit, and I'm not talking about scones. That's ridiculous. What else is ridiculous is the audacity of Sada Dragon to want to clear his own red buff. Is going to be able to secure it, and look at that damage coming through. Tripno able to absolutely mill Akron, but a beautifully placed Aegis is going to save him for now. Up into the sky go 2 people. Look at that Akron. Up he goes, trying to find the damage. Is SatterDragon. He's going to find the first one, but Johnny answers straight back with 2. Goodbye. But Zero's now being looked at. He should fall down as well. A nice stun isn't going to save his life, though, as Johnny slips away on the right side. But that's a pretty even trade. 2 kills on either side, probably favoring the Tanukis at this point in time, considering how far ahead Mambo are.
Completely agree, and that comes down to Snatty made the rotation, and Deathwalker did not. It was a numbers advantage for Yomi Tanuki. Despite Hex Mambo striking first in that fight, numbers were never equalized. Deathwalker never made the decision to rotate over towards that side, so instead, he sticks around, steals away a blue buff, and takes away some farm. Yomi Tanuki, though, keeps Snatty on the left-hand side, and finally look towards that gold 3, which will fall before Fire Giant. And that's an interesting point, because 21 minutes in is the first gold Fury to fall down. Gold still largely in favor of Hex Mambo, as is experience.
Didn't make a dent.
Well, it made a dent. It went up a little bit.
That's
like a 20% dent.
That's gotta be a painful situation. But we have seen further leads at this point in the games this week so far,
yeah,
right?
Last game.
Yeah, we definitely saw a further gap, and if Mambo can do it, Tanuki can do it too. And they're not out of these fights, they're still finding equal trades. And in that last engagement, Zeros falls down at level 18, Tripno falls down at level 15. So, that's one hell of a trade in favor of Tanuki's when you're getting a mid laner 3 levels higher than your own.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, as well as taking away both defensive relics from Zeros. You can see Yomi Tanuki empowered and confident now, and they're taking the fight, are able to pick themselves up a Pyromancer. I'm not certain that Fire Giant's a terrible call, with Zeros as low and as weak as he is.
Zero's forced up
He's
into
just
the
dead.
fire shot. Absolutely. I don't even think SatterDragon needs to expend the ultimate there. Zero's no shot gets out of that situation. And now Tanuki, 4-man strong, should be able to pick up this tier 1 tower here. And then, you know what, Mifflin? Fire Giant might be on the menu, but blinking forward is Trix Tank, looking to find something. Does force Hydrogen to take a little bit of damage, but no one wants to follow up on that engagement just yet.
No, healing good for Yomi Tanuki. That tier 1 tower will fall very quickly now that backdoor protections are no longer a concern. And even in spending some time to take the tier 1, still have got 20 seconds left on Zeros' respawn. When he does respawn, we'll at least have beads and Aegis available, but it's Yomi Tanuki stepping up aggressive. Leon tries to snatch Trix Tank over the wall, but a dash from the Kumakarna will escape for him. Yeah, Hydrogen's positioning is wild, right? He's a frontliner.
That was the most wild back, and I am known for my wild backs. Johnny taking a huge chunk here, finally. The damage from Tripno is starting to come on board, and this is what we need, I think, for Yomi Tanuki at the moment. Tripno really has not been able to do all too much, sitting slap bang in the middle of the player damage charts here with 9,500. It's not what you want to see from your Agni 23 minutes into a game.
I'd argue of that 9,000, it's probably like 2 fights. He has not been getting active too much on the map, but when he has been, the damage output has been very high. So surprised to see it as low as it is, and I expect to see it jump up pretty significantly very shortly. But positioning on the charts, not really the biggest deal. Like 5,000 separates him from the highest damage in the game, which is,
sure,
I suppose, a couple of bombs and a flame wave. This game has been relatively low paced up until this point. Hex Mambo pulling out the Fire Giant, dropping it low, slowly, to about 90%, and then immediately reset.
They don't want the Fire Giant, they want this fight, and Trix Tank already takes 1 crit to the face, and he's not very happy about it. Elion, though, equally unhappy, but he does have that little bit extra healing there. Doesn't have the condition that Deathwalker does, where he has to be near enemies to be able to accrue some of that health. And now, looking to start up the Fire Giant is Yomi Tanuki. Mambo right around the corner, though. This could be a very dangerous situation.
It could be. Hex Mambo are in a very good position to chase out the fight. Blink forward from Deathwalker.
Finds 3 with the Pillar of Agony, and that's going to force some beads already from Hydrogen specifically. Mambo, though, still not really able to follow up off of that situation. And this is something that we've seen so good from Tanuki all set, is this ability to disengage from fights.
Yeah, haven't had the opportunity to speak with LAO, and I know exactly how these calls work. It's get out, and then they do.
Deathwalker, though, jumping in, finds Tripno in the backline, does Johnny with the ultimate. Tripno still trying to just pump out as much damage as possible. Johnny, though, taking a large amount in return. Deathwalker looking around the side. Here are the arrows from the sky! Ekrom hits 2 with 2, finishing up Tripno with the 3rd. Deathwalker now looking to try and lock down Ellie on up to the sky. Trix Tank throws Hydrogen, and landing back down, he is able to dash through into safety for now. Beautiful heal coming through from Snatty, and luckily, Tanuki have been able to do enough damage back to Mambo that they shouldn't be able to safely start up this Fire Giant, and Tanuki are getting emboldened. They want to keep going in.
Sada Dragon may have bit off more than he could chew, dropped low, is able to disengage, heal good from Leon, but it's Hydrogen forward.
Look at the damage coming through from Hydrogen right now. Trix Tank can't even stand up to 2 auto attacks, but in the background, look at Sada Dragon. Luckily, he's playing this Circuit. Maybe one of the few junglers besides Susano who can get away from this Nemesis that easily. But Tanuki, I think they've calmed down a little bit. They're not going to do this Fire Giant right now.
No, but they have got an advantage. If Sada Dragon can reset himself, work his way back towards the Fire Giant, it takes about 10 seconds to walk from your fountain to Fire Giant proper, which means that there's going to be 10 seconds left on the grayscale by the time Yomi Tanuki get all towards 5 stacked on this Fire Giant pit. So it's going to be a 4 versus 5. Favoring Yomi Tanuki. Hex Mambo, best of luck on the defense. It's Deathwalker staring him down.
Fire Giant being started up by Hydrogen, and those crits are making very short work. The objective already at 50%, but the rest of Hex Mambo are here for now. Snatty looking to pull Deathwalker in, already uses the dash, but to no avail. Look at the damage that's getting poured down onto him. Tripno finds his first kill of the game so far, but the damage from Ekrom in return not quite going to be enough to trade out the mid laner. Tripno just about holds on to his life, but Mambo are down a solo laner for the next 50 seconds.
Tripno with 46 HP will make his way back to base. 45 more than he needed. Unfortunately, one missed shot from Ekrom means that he misses out on the kill, and Deathwalker trades out his life. Surprised to see Deathwalker not channel Pillars of Agony to avoid the stun from Snatty, I suppose. Not quite privy to the fact that a knockup from Hydrogen was right afterward, and well, a couple auto attacks after that is all it takes to shut down this Hades. Yomi Tanuki learned their lesson, though, will not pull the Fire Giant yet again. Instead, this time, it's the Pyromancer, and it goes down easily.
Super quick work. Zeros throws in the Fire Shard there the Shining Metal. Everything's fire with us today, Peflin. Everything's on fire, just like the Tanuki, jumping straight back on to it, but Zeros and Trix Tank hiding in this fog. Snatty takes a huge chunk of damage there, pulls Trix Tank back over the line. He's going to get hit by a lot of damage, but so has Snatty. Look at the fire, and he's going to use his ultimate now to knock up the Circuit, who does get the ultimate down onto Johnny. Half HP on the Fire Giant, but once again, up into the sky goes Ekrom, finds one. He's got to stop doing this. Trix Tank blinking forward, finds all 4 with the Mesmerize, and Hydrogen able to find the return kill. No follow-up from Mambo after such a beautiful Mesmerize. You gotta know Trix Tank's feeling upset about that.
Hex Mambo healthy around the Fire Giant pit. Leon may have heals, but they will come slowly. Tripno and Sada Dragon dropped low. Fire Giant about 50%. Can Hex Mambo stick their target? It's Deathwalker in with a 3-man silence.
But the knockup from Hydrogen is going to stop him from doing too much. But the Pillar of Agony locking in Leon. But look at where they're grouped up. The Rain Fire is going to find one. Zeros does find the return kill on to Leon, but Hydrogen using that airstrike to go in. Zeros is stunned. Zeros is dead. Hydrogen is unstoppable this game.
Hydrogen has been left alone in the back line for too long. 7-0-6 for Yomi Tanuki's ADC. And, well, that space is created by the massive threats built around him. Snatty has been making his home in the front line. Tripno is putting out ridiculous damage in these team fights. And slowly but surely, Hydrogen has been climbing his way to the damage charts. I'm losing it, man. This game was nothing for 25 minutes and then everything for the last 4. Hex Mambo, though, have only got 15 seconds left on Ekrom's respawn. 20 on Zeros. They should be able to regroup and try and put up a defense. It's not about stopping the Fire Giant. It's about slowing it down or baiting them off of it.
It's just the 2 tanks. Minimal steal potential here. Deathwalker and Trix Tank are just here to try and disrupt, but Dragon and Snatty are playing a really good job in the front line. Johnny now is the biggest disadvantage that they got to the Fire Giant still being DPS. They're still looking to take it, and the Rainfire is going to secure the first Fire Giant in the game. And look at Johnny's HP! He nearly falls down instantly. Luckily able to get out thank you to that Nemesis shield. Trix Tank won't be so lucky. There is no way he gets out of this situation. 1 man down, and Tanuki, while they may not have gotten it at the EFG, just barely missing out on that enhanced buff, they find Fire Giant And you know what? This might just be a giant screw you to Trelly's timer.
It might be 30 or so minutes in. Fire Giant will fall. 29 minutes, 55 seconds. All right, let's be exact. Either way, it's 5 members with Fire Giant and Hex Mambo, 4 strong, trying to defend their bird. I may have misspoke.
way.
No attempt to defend the bird this time. Mid Phoenix will fall, but the Yomi Tanuki cannot continue their onslaught. 4 towers still standing.
Johnny walks out of base there, sees 5 members of the blue team, and nopes out as fast as he can. Yomi Tanuki now in a fantastic position. And look at that graph, ladies and gentlemen. All game, there has been 1 moment since the start that the Tanukis have had a neutral position against this team. And now they are sitting 3,000 gold in the lead.
Yeah, 3,000 gold, 31 minutes in. I'm not sure that's enough to write home about, but Fire Giant
It's
certainly.
something, man.
It's something. It's definitely better than the other direction, isn't it? But Yomi Tanuki, I suppose, already moving in towards the 6th item slot, as have Hex Mambo, 31 minutes in. Gold differentiation, not that high. It's more so about map state and what you're capable of doing with it. Fire Giant on 5 members for another 2.5 minutes. Yomi Tanuki can make a couple of decisions. Unfortunately for them, it's a little bit more difficult to split the map. Can't get that traditional 4-1 split if the mid Phoenix has already fallen. If you split off your jungler towards the opposite side, it's going to be very difficult for him to regroup with you. So instead, I imagine we see Yomi Tanuki group up as 5 and start to work their way down that left-hand side of the map. Hex Mambo's base defense is not awful, but certainly not ideal either. Zeros on Nuwa, not the highest range damage, not that traditional artillery that you're used to. It's mainly the ultimate, and then afterward it's, okay, I hope I can find a stun on the Phoenix line. Deathwalker, in these simplified situations, will have a much, much harder time channeling Pillars of Agony. With Tripno and Hydrogen staring him down, he might not get another opportunity to do so. I think it rides very heavily, the defense that is, on Hex Mambo's support. Whether or not Trix Tank can find an epic uppercut onto a priority target and have that damage follow-up behind him.
Something else to consider at the moment, Mifflin, is that both Johnny and Trix Tank have just finished up their spectral armor. That means while Hydrogen has been doing a lot of damage to these frontliners, this is going to mitigate at least a little bit of that. These crits are still going to be hurting, though.
They will, especially on priority targets that have not got it available to them. Speaking of, it's Sada Dragon in a 1v1 up against Johnny, and Johnny likes it.
Up on to his back goes Sada Dragon. The poison connects, and Johnny no longer favors his chances. I do believe that is going to be a, well, actually a pretty impactful ultimate lost from Hex Mambo and Tanuki. But Johnny now does not have the ability to just blow up Elion. Hydrogen gets blinked on the backline. There's going to be the Mesmerize, but nothing to come off of it. The beads were expended, and so was Snatty's ultimate. I'm not even sure who that favors.
Yeah, not a whole lot of favor for either side. I think maybe net wash, as Yomi Tanuki, with only 20 seconds left on this Fire Giant, we're not quite able to crack the left side bird. Hex Mambo with a phenomenal defense, play very well around Snatty's ultimate, but we'll see if they can continue to play well as Yomi Tanuki hover nearby. Step up into the jungle, you would die, but unfortunately for Yomi Tanuki, they're standing on like 4 wards.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? For their first Fire Giant of the game, Mifflin, 4 towers and a... Whoa! What a blink! What a kill! Johnny falls down to some inventive strategy from Sada Dragon. Catches him off guard here in the right side jungle. And Mifflin, they're going to take that to the bank and go straight back to the left Phoenix.
Keep up this siege. Johnny was not a pivotal part of the defense last time around. It was still a 5 versus 4 essentially for Yomi Tanuki, as Johnny was just clearing out those mid waves. Now though, no one else can clear out the mid waves. They have got to group up. Hex Mambo, 5 versus 4, want to keep the bird.
Jumping forward now is Deathwalker. No beads available for Hydrogen. Has to use the Aegis so far, but Trix Tank getting engaged onto, and there's the damage. Elion, 1 HP away from Death's Door, and I would not be surprised to see Akram jumping up into the sky any moment now. Needs to find that kill onto Elion. The bird is down, and only 1 Phoenix and 2 towers are in the way. In terms of structures, it doesn't look like Tanuki want to push their luck with this Titan too much. And the ultimate from Ekrom already expended, blinking forward. Dragon gets the ultimate off onto Ekrom, and look at the damage coming out onto the Titan. But Tanuki's, They've decided to call it quits. That's going to be enough for the siege.
Leon can't stick around, can't help his team, and does not like his odds, so instead, reset, mid and left. Phoenix drop down. Fire Giant already respawned and enhanced. Hex Mambo are going to have a very hard time defending this one. Nearly catch out Sada Dragon on his rotation back towards base. If everybody goes back on Yomi Tanuki, we could see Hex Mambo immediately pull out this fire. 2 in base, 3 on the defense. Yomi Tanuki have kept enough members to dissuade Hex Mambo. If Mambo want to fight here, it's going to have to come soon because the base is already starting to have some fire minions knock on the door.
No trebuchets available on that left or mid side, only on the right-hand lane, so the Tanukis don't have too many options in terms of keeping pressure outside of those fire waves, but I mean, what am I saying? I'm saying that like those fire waves aren't enough incentive to keep at least a whole member of Hex Mambo back in base.
And that member seems to be Johnny, who's reprising his role from the initial base defense. Will continue to keep the Titan happy and healthy. That said, the rest of Hex Mambo have got very aggressive positioning on the map, 4 stacked on this right-hand side. E-Chrome has got the opportunity to steal away with his ultimate, but I'm not certain that's what they're looking for instead. Does Hex Mambo want this fight?
They're stepping up. Fire Giant now half HP. Looks like Tanukis are going to drop it for now. They were just baiting it. They don't want the fight, though, at least not instantly from it. Trick Tank might get rooted out, but the damage isn't going to connect afterwards.
As long as Yomi Tanuki can keep Hex Mambo nearby, that left side wave is going to push in.
5 people hit by the mesmerized Trick Tank, though, once again getting turned around on. Zeros falls down as a casualty of war, and up into the sky flies the Jingwei. Deathwalker could be the next person, but Dragon going to be the one to die, but Ekrom's going to pop to the poison, and now Johnny running away on the bottom-hand side. Trick Tank and Deathwalker, no HP to their name. Both the carries are on grayscale for the next minute, and Johnny is going to give up the second enhanced Fire Giant of the game.
Yomi Tanuki in a very good position to continue pushing forward. 40 seconds left on a respawn. I think they can go ahead and start to push in for the win. That Titan will burn very quickly, seems the Tanuki agree with me. They're not concerning themselves with these right-hand towers. Instead, they'd like to end now. 30 seconds to play with until Zeros respawns. Deathwalker, no ultimate. Johnny doesn't have his either, and he's not even in range to defend. Has to go back to base.
3 people left standing. 17 seconds on the nearest player. Zeros and the rest of his team have to put on so much to defend this Titan, but with Johnny falling down and the Pillar of Agony right underneath the Titan, it's gonna be too little, and Yomi Tanuki are gonna come back and pull us to the first Game 3 of the day.
Yomi Tanuki, ever the showman, will keep us on the edge of our seat as we try to establish who moves on to the next group. What a phenomenal Game 2. I expect massive adaptations from both teams. Seems to me Yomi Tanuki have figured out Hex Mambo's strategy. If you're gonna wait for the absolute latest portion of the game, Tanuki can do the exact same and win out with a 5-on-5.
Trelly was saying it on the desk. They needed to win this game in
Trelly alone.
I'm going for the throat on Trelly Relly. He said 24 minutes was
Trelly.
the time limit for Yomi Tanuki. They not only proved him wrong, they went an extra 15 into this game, and I would say very adequately dismantled Hex Mambo.
They did. There was a couple team fights where it was neck and neck, but by the time that second Fire Giant had fallen down, it just felt like the Tanuki had a firm grasp on the match from there. I gotta give shout-outs, though. I know Tripno wasn't at the top of the damage charts, but when he did get involved, these Agni plays really dominated.
Absolutely. He's a scary character to have to go up against, especially when you got to get close and personal. But ladies and gentlemen, we've got a a best of 1 set left. Only one
Game
set.
3.
It's Game 3, but
3.
it leaves it with a best of 1, right? There's only 1 game left in it, so.
Match point, best of 3.
Come back later.
sub. We see you.
And welcome back to the SMITE Pro League Masters Tournament, brought to us by our good friends over at Prime Gaming. If you have an Amazon Prime subscription already, then you should be making the most of your Prime Gaming subscription that comes with it, where you can get a free Twitch sub to your favorite streamers. You get access to all kinds of exclusive extra content for the games that you're already playing. And if you see a title that pops up in one of those videos or on the little crown at the top of your screen, you can get some of those games for yourself too. If you don't already have an Amazon Prime subscription, you should probably go ahead and get one, because you get free 2-day shipping on almost all of the great products offered onto their site, whether that be books, movies, groceries, anything else out there that you can think of. Amazon's probably got it, and then once you have that, you can link that up with your Twitch account so that way you can make sure to get Prime Gaming for yourself and get all of the great content that comes with it. Thank you so much, Prime Gaming, for being the sponsor here in Season 9 of the SPL. It's J-Mac. I got Charlie with me here on the desk as we get ready to break down game number 2, which was a very long-winded one. And I think you have something you wanted to maybe correct towards Blazy at the end of that one.
I mean, he was standing right there casting. He heard my words, but he just didn't hear them when it was time to cast. I said if the Tanuki didn't pull and get a Fire Giant by 24 minutes, they would have to play pristinely to win because Hex Mambo is used to playing in the later stage of the game. And they played pretty perfectly, I would say. There wasn't too many mistakes to capitalize on, and they certainly switched up their late game playstyle. I think they did it very well.
Yeah, I think probably the one fault that they may have had was grouping up as 4 people around Akuma Karn and maybe getting one too many snipes hit by Ikrom there. But outside of that, the Yomi Tanuki really able to turn this one around at around that 30-minute mark, around those Fire Giant fights, because that's pretty much where the entirety of the last half of the game was played, was around these Fire Giant pits.
Yeah, it was great to see the switch up of the comp because, number one, El Leon had these pulls. Obviously looked very good on the Yemoja, but Sylvanas just a highlight character in his own right. You get to see these sweet pulls. Obviously, Tripno on the Agni, something he was off a Hunter for the first time today and looked very solid as well. And then any Jing Wei highlight is usually just going to be pop the bolts and just see crit, 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 and looked very solid as well, so Hydrogen playing perfectly.
Yeah, 33,000 damage for the Jing Wei, the Hunter here on the side of the Yomi Tanuki. And a lot of problems that we really did see when it came to the late game. Deathwalker dropping down those Pillar of Agonies and sure, able to hold 3-4 people at a time during every single one of those. But at the same time, you are a Hades standing still in the middle of 3 or 4 people. Not quite tanky enough and not quite enough damage to really be able to hold out there.
Yeah, looking at both of these ADCs, Hydrogen was 8-0, but Ikrom, as you mentioned, those snipes were so crisp as well. Once you get to the later stage of the game on Rama, you really have to watch out. When you think you're about half health and you're like, I could probably get out here, and then you just look up and Ikrom's just sniping you from the skyline. So just a great, well-played game, even in the later stages by the Yomi Tanuki. So now, Hex Mambo have to go back to the drawing board. They're not going to be able to stall out to the later portion of the game to this like enhanced Fire Giant time and say, hey, we'll just simply team fight better. That was not the case. The Yomi Tanuki, they had an answer for pretty much everything. I think it would start, though. Mambo probably want to ban away this Jing Wei.
I'll go ahead and kind of correct myself a little bit about Deathwalker, saying he's not very tanky to be able to do that. Sure, he mitigated 75,000 damage. That's a ton. Not saying that he couldn't. It's just that when there were 4 people surrounding him 30-plus minutes in the game, there's just a little too much damage for a single guy to take it and really try to divert the attention of the Yomi Tanuki. That brings us to our first Game 3 set of the week so far. As we get ready to jump into this one, though, a lot of adaptations to really be made by both these teams because it wasn't a perfect game by any means from either of these teams in either the game number 1 or in game number 2. The late game is definitely where the Hex Mambo team is slanted to try and pull that favoritism towards. What kind of change-ups do you need to see from them to try and get themselves to secure Game 3?
I truthfully think if they just got a death onto Hydrogen just one time, that could have stopped the vast majority of the DPS that the Tanuki had in the later stage of the game. I mean, Jing Wei cannot go 8-0 and expect to lose the game. It's simply not going to be happening, especially in a meta like this. So either A, banning out the Jing Wei, or B, actually, there shouldn't even be a B. I think banning out the Jing Wei or picking it for yourself. Those are your 2 options right now. Trying to get Hydrogen on something not so safe. Obviously, there's going to be a few different hunters right now that can put out that kind of DPS, but that safely, I can only think of like Heimdall and still not getting the free crit. You want these auto attack stims on these characters right now. So something as safe as Jing Wei cannot go to the hands of Hydrogen.
And not just having the Jing Wei, but also the Baron, who is another one of those gods who has been rated at the top of the charts by PBM through his tier list. And I mean, just the success that we've seen from Baron throughout the week so far, I'm not surprised at all at the fact that he's getting so much priority, and we are seeing so many wins coming under the belt of that god. So maybe when it comes down to the side of Hex Mambo here, maybe a decision to be made. Ban one, take the other, or maybe just gamble that they don't take one of those themselves. Picks and bans for game number 3, though, between Hex Mambo and Yomi Tanuki, ready to fire off. And it will be Hex Mambo in that first pick slot. So they've got a lot of choices to be made here. And that first choice is going to be actually take Chernobog off the table.
Yeah, I'm not going to be surprised if we see the Chernobog Uller. It's just that third slot Obviously, last game it was Yamoja. Do you continue banning out Elion, or do you throw a third ban towards an ADC? Obviously, Chernobog and Ullr more so looking at Tripno in the mid lane, but I think, again, hi-rez has had such a great performance. You don't really want to deal with that. The Tanuki, though, are going to stick with that Mercury ban that we've seen all game thus far, and now they've got a choice to say, hey, do we want to deal with that Kumba? This time, going to ban away the Geb Walker.
Geb taking away Mercury alongside there, so a shot at Johnny, a shot at Deathwalker. And the question for Mambo was, what were they gonna ban with this third one? Would it have been the third ban with the Jingwei? Was it going to be the Baron? It was the Baron for Mambo, but Yomi Tanuki will take away the Jingwei for themselves instead. That leaves a lot of things open. Kleena, Baba Yaga, maybe not the one I was expecting of a first pick, but maybe not surprising with how Mambo has been able to perform with this god.
Yeah, the mental gymnastics I had to do to understand what just happened. I'm realizing now Baba Yaga was banned away, and obviously Tanuki are in second pick. They don't want to give up the Jingwei, and they don't want to deal with the Geb, so they're going to have to take away the Geb, and then Baba Yaga gets through. At least they get to pick up that Yamoja in this slot, and Rama. We've already mentioned that a few different ADCs can pop off like Jingwei did, but this Rama is going to provide a lot of safety, and we just saw Chrome's performance on the Rom. That's going to be a solid bet there. Now, the Mambo, they really have to pick an ADC here or risk getting completely banned out. There's going to be a few different hunters you really want to get your hands on if you want that safety, or just get banned away.
Yeah, you're a bit of a step ahead of me, and in this case now, Hex Mambo going to pick the one I was going to suggest, which is that Heimdall, that default on the side of the EU Hunters is a god that they really love to go towards. This one that Echrome has had exceptional performances on in the past, just as many of the EU Hunter players has had. And then a Sobek to tie up along with that. So Hex Mambo grabbed their front line, and knowing the players on Hex Mambo, I'm imagining this one is slotted over more towards Trixtank.
Yeah, we've seen so many Guardians in the solo lane, and we've seen the Sobek in the solo lane this game on the other team, but given, as you mentioned, the fact that this is Trix, I would not be surprised to see the Sobek in that duo lane, and then mixed with the Heimdall, that's just going to provide a lot of safety. That's what you want to see. Obviously, the Jingwei was taken away, and the Rama is now taken away, so going to be a good sight.
Yomi Tanuki with one final pick before we jump into the second half of the bans. And the question is, do they want to grab their mid laner now? The Baba Yaga's already been picked up on the side of Mambo, and if not picked up here, a couple of bans go their way, notably Thoth. Agni could even be a takeaway with the performance that Tripno had, but it will not be so. Agni picked up instead by the Yomi Tanuki to make sure they can grab their mid laner before the bans come through. And now as we look towards this one, we're looking at a lot of solo lane opportunity for bans out here. Whether this Sobek is going support or solo means that Deathwalker and the team have to make some decisions, and Yomi Tanuki specifically had to find some of those picks that way.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't envy the position the Tanuki are in to try and ban whatever Deathwalker's got cooking up right now. And they are just going to say, you know what, we don't even know, so we're just going to ban jungles. We're going to ban out Johnny Set, and we don't want to have to deal with whatever, again, Deathwalker's cooking up in that solo lane. Something to note, that Kumba is pretty much off the table as long as they think that Sobek will be piloted by Trixtank. So Sada Dragon's Kali does look a little bit more appetizing in that jungle role now, because the Kumba sort of is something you never want to pick it into. We still have the jungle pick on the table for both of these teams, but it looks like they're going to be taking some bans. Obviously, Serket on the other side, not wanting to deal with the anti-heal and just the amount of lockdown and mobility that Serket can bring, and Set sort of the same boat.
What if that is the mental gymnastics that Hex Mambo are going through as they see that, well, they haven't banned Kumakarn. We really like Kumakarn. What if we pick the Sobek and kind of bait them into leaving that pick open here? But it will be 4 junglers banned away by these two teams. The Set and Serket, as you talked about a moment ago, and then Daji and Kali all taken away. So a lot of these auto-attack centric style junglers in the Set and the Kali specifically, and then a couple more of those ability, kind of at least semi-bruiser-esque with the Serket and that high burst damage on the Daji. Yomi Tanuki will now have to dig a little bit further down in that jungle pocket's what they want to grab, but I think most notably the Osiris that was played earlier on the day is still up if they want to go for it.
Yeah, that definitely could be a strong option here. Obviously, you know, we touched on the fact that Kali looked good into this draft because Kumba is probably not going to be on the table. And I think Mambo realized that as well and are just going to remove it. So now the Tanuki have some thinking to do. What junglers are still open that could really shut down the Mambo draft? You already touched on the Osiris. And we think, when you think of Sada Dragon, these hard carry style junglers, there was already an Osiris game. Looked pretty solid in the early, but late game wasn't the best. Maybe a little bit of answer back. We go for the Erlong. More often than not, we see that in the jungle role, but I suppose it could be a flex. And if you're waiting to see what Deathwalker will pick here, because he's forced into picking solo now, you can't wait for the counter pick. You have to pick both your slots here. Maybe they can hold on to that just for a little longer.
Yeah, for sure. Before the slight rework that Erlong Shen had, we've been seeing pretty much predominantly in that jungle. But there was always some talks in the air about the fact that maybe he can go over towards that solo role with some of the change-ups there. So we'll see where this one goes for the side of the Yomi Tanuki. Hex Mambo potentially need either their support or solo, depending where this Sobek is going. And a jungler on the side of Johnny. If you're Johnny in this position, looking at the 4 that they have, is there anyone that really sticks out to you, Trelly?
Something just occurred to me in the back recesses of my mind. When Hex Mambo needed to get a win to make sure they were able to come here, I'm pretty sure Deathwalker went to the Mulan. Obviously, it's a very different meta, but usually when the going gets tough, Deathwalker likes to whip out the Mulan. It's not banned away, but it doesn't really fit the playstyle he's been going for this tournament. Just something to think of. Johnny, though, has played the Hoonbats before. Something that we haven't seen too much as of recently, but today we did talk about the fact that it brings a lot of team fight presence, and really late game, if you're just going for that FG fight, win that fight, get the FG, win the game style, Hoonbats is pretty solid, and they will go ahead and lock that in.
Look, I'll never be upset with having a Hoonbats on my team just because of Fear No Evil alone. I mean, it is one of the most powerful ultimates that you can have out there for your team, being able to separate things out. But it will be Hades one more time on the side of Hex Mambo. So this Sobek going over towards the dual lane to pair up with Heimdall. So Sobek Heimdall up against Yamoja and Rom. How does that dual lane kind of pan out there for Hex Mambo?
I have to imagine Trix is going to try and get very aggressive in the early stage of the game, trying to get beads down, trying to find those plucks. And if he does, who's going to come over? But Johnny with the Hoonbats. Once you get those beads down, you're a pretty easy target for Fear No Evil. It looks like Snatty will grab the Amaterasu. We've seen Snatty hard carry some games on this Ama, the auto attack centric solo laner that can just go Berserker, Shoguns, Frostbound, and just be a complete nuisance. A completely different style of solo that we haven't seen too much this game. We saw Sobek and we saw Baron. This is going to be a completely different game style. I imagine trying to get active early, not let this Hades just farm to late game until you can get that Bumbus Hammer. So going to be an interesting matchup, but I think Snatty's going to look to get very aggressive in this lane.
And to note there with the Amaterasu, does have 100% win rate so far over in that solo lane when it has been picked up. I believe it was during the Gladiator set and with the Hounds that they were able to find a couple of matchups in that instance at the very least where this Ama was able to find success. So definitely much more potent maybe to say at the very least in previous patches where these auto attack warriors were the dominant factor. We have seen the success out of here so far, so maybe me asking, how do you feel about an Amaterasu might be a little bit of a backhanded one, but once again, as we push towards 35, 40 minutes of these games, is this a late game draft that the Yomi Tanuki can push for a win?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, you're never going to be mad about getting Rama or Agni to late game. Obviously, Erlong has much more success in the early, but being an auto attack style warrior, you can always build into some shred late game and just help out the team. 9 turns blessing, a great CC tool, could be a solid engage or just a chase down for some extra HP, that sort of thing. So with the Amaterasu, I think your objective shred is always going to be pretty solid as well. That passive is going to help you out. Usually the Tanuki have been leaning towards those double hunter comps, and this will sort of match that level of burn on to an objective. But Hex Mambo, again, this Baba Yaga, not going to do too much in the early. Really playing for that later stage of the game when you can get these stacking items online. And we saw how much damage Zeros was able to do when Baba Yaga got online. That's why it was banned away last game.
Well, we know kind of the potency that Hoonbats has when it comes to the early rotations. You get those beads out in the dual lane with the help of that Sobek, can make for a nice Plux there. But when it comes down to those big team fights, is it going to be an easy time for this Hoonbats to get into that back line and maybe find a few sets of those beads or even set up for his team?
I can't imagine Johnny wants to be the first one into the fight unless relics are always down. You don't want to say, hey, I'm going in, I'm going to get beads with the Fear No Evil, because Hoonbats' kit, besides the ult, is not going to be that great. If you're just ulting for beads and then you sort of lose your fight potential, that's not going to be your best option. Trix tank, I imagine, will be getting very aggressive, trying to get these beads down early, so then Johnny can just essentially blink in and ult those key targets.
Maybe once some of those beads are down, either from the Pluck or the Fear No Evil, maybe we can see Deathwalker get in there with that Hades and find some success. Last game started off with a little bit of lifesteal, some damage in the early game to kind of get through that early phase. We'll see, though, if that can translate to the late game. Game number 3, who's going to move on to groups and who's going to have to keep fighting? Let's find out.
Thank you, J-Mac and Trelly. No timer from Trelly this time around to determine how long the Yomi Tanukis have in this game. But I'm very excited to see which of these two teams is going to move us on through into our first secured advancement slot.
This is an interesting start, it looks like. Johnny and Zeros hovering on this left-hand side. Is this a different jungle start than I'm used to seeing? Is this brand new? I don't think I've seen this style before.
I think it might be not really doing this typical. I'm really excited to see
Just
what
reverse order?
I mean, this looks like a similar start that we were seeing in
they do
Season
backs
8
to
at
get there?
one point. They, start at red, go to speed, do backs, and then to lane.
Huh. Both teams are doing it.
Interesting.
Okay. Has this been happening previously and we're both idiots, or?
I think it might just have been happening every game, and I think we might just both be blind.
Just autopiloting, I suppose.
Yeah, I
okay.
guess.
Different start should get them over to level 2 a little bit more quickly in the lane. Interesting. Okay. So that maybe this is the new meta established here.
Right.
But regardless, it is going to be a slightly slower early game than I think we saw in Game 1. If we were to play the game, I'd say definitely post 6 minutes on First Blood, just by nature of the composition. Sada Dragon really the only one who can establish an early pace for this team, and with Manic Conceptor on Erlong Shen as he is now, a little bit weaker than he once was as far as early game initiations go. No longer has that knock-up. Instead, generally going to be using that mink form to just get additional movement speed.
Hydrogen could be in some trouble going under the tower for it. Not quite able to find First Blood. Trix Tank takes a giant chunk from the tower. Close, but no cigar.
Yeah, nearly. I'm surprised they're willing to even step into that tower whatsoever at this point in the game. Those things swing in 9.5, but only one tower shot will not drop someone down to less than 50% on its own. So Hex Mambo still healthy and able to leverage a little bit of that aggression. That said, anytime you're laning against the Emoja and you don't kill them, they will simply resustain.
Very true. Trix Tank does get the pluck off onto Elion there, but no real chance of getting that kill onto the Emoja anytime soon. Meanwhile, the proxy wave actually coming here through from Deathwalker, just trying to make Snaddy's life a little bit less comfortable. But look at this rotation now from Sada Dragon. Look at the head off Deathwalker. This is going to be a very risky gank. Hades not a very easy character to get rid of.
Oof.
Already uses the beads though.
Yeah, pre-beads, doesn't want to get affected by the pin. Sada Dragon still off the mark, wouldn't have pinned him either way. But better safe than sorry. Better to have used it and not needed it than the inverse. So, Deathwalker will lose out on that defensive relic, but having that tier 2 Talon, having so much lifesteal and inherent healing in the kit should be able to resustain relatively easily. That said, will cost him his blue buff as Sada Dragon is able to rotate his way in and even look towards this speed. Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of deep invades going on from Sada Dragon. Ekrom here, looking to pick up this purple buff as well, but no success found by Hex Mambo on the invade on the left-hand side. Conversely, the speed buff is in fact taken away by Sada Dragon. Now Ekrom and Trix Tank are going to clear up their own purple buff, hopefully.
Yeah, so Leon steps up, attempts to take away the purple, is unsuccessful in doing so. It does seem that Johnny's got a slight experience advantage as of now, but how invades work in Smite, if you take away one of those buffs, it's worth a little bit less than clearing out your own camp. So the lead of invading comes from when you're able to reset and clear out your own side of the jungle. And that's exactly what Sada Dragon is doing now. At the end of the day, I think that will net him about a half level to a level lead over Johnny, and ticking over to level 5 sooner rather than later, important for both of these gods. 9 turns Blessing, one of the best engaged tools for Yomi Tanuki, and Fear No Evil, one of the best engaged tools for Hex Mambo. I'm keeping my eyes on these junglers.
Ekrom getting stunned out here. Hydrogen doing a lot of damage. One more auto should do it. And here comes the jungler Hydrogen, forced to roll away. Johnny, no ultimate available. And I think he's just about got it, but meanwhile on the right-hand side, Deathwalker gets taken down by the jungler Ekrom. Sorry, Hydrogen still in a lot of trouble. The overhead smash is going to find that one. And Elion does get hit by the Fear No Evil, but has the beads available. Trix Tank still looking for the pluck. No Omi on Yamoja, and that should be the death.
Man, that was such clean play from Trix Tank. Leon trying his best to bait out that pluck. If Trix Tank misses, he just dies. But Leon or Trickstank rather, a little bit too patient, sees that Leon's just juking on tower line. No reason to pluck you just then if you're going to stay within range of the carry. So holds on to it until eventually Leon is forced to commit to walking away and well, has nothing left in the tank. Beads lost by the Emoja, as is the life. Dual lane falls down for Yomi Tanuki, but first blood will go to the Tanuki as Sada Dragon's able to find it onto Deathwalker in the solo. And Amaterasu with a lead is not anything to sneeze at. Keep your eyes on Snatty. Not only will he have an advantage in lane, he'll have decent clear, great aggressive itemization in that first slot with Golden Blade. But Amaterasu's additional movement speed means her rotations are just incredibly strong.
Mambo are coming for this ADC in the form of Ekrom. 9 Tons Blessing is used to try and pick that one up. Elion forced under tower, and look at those shots, swinging hard. But no kill on the left-hand side just yet. Johnny might be able to find Sada Dragon, though. But he decides not to go for that purple buff. A very wise choice from the jungler. And Midland, I think that means I win this game, too.
Well, you didn't
give me a chance to. You said post 6 minutes. I didn't get to say. So
well, you could have said at any point.
I win by default, I think is the point here.
All right. Yeah, I'm all right with that. Deathwalker on the retreat as I try desperately to reroute ourselves in the game. Hex Mambo still about 400 or so gold in the lead, 5.5 minutes in, but I think this is going to become my new catchphrase. Game starts when soul laners rotate out. It's going to be a little while for both of these guys. I think Snatty, generally around second to third item, can start to get involved in the team fight. And Amaterasu is a massive part of Yomi Tanuki's objective game. That passive from Amaterasu after applying 3 auto attacks is just so massive before looking towards Pyro or Gold Fury. But neither team has really got the greatest confirmation tools. Tripno might be strongest individual ability on the map, a bomb plus flame wave combo, probably beating out anything that Zeros is able to do in a similar time frame.
Johnny.
So I like the Tanuki's odds.
Johnny getting pincered here is hit by a lot. The silence, look at that, the Riptide over the wall. That's just dirty.
It is, but it doesn't net him too much, does
No,
it?
but it's
Leon go for
stylish.
styling points,
Yeah.
so fair enough to him. It's a significant grouping on the right-hand side, all for this Greater Scorpion. A little bit of global golden experience goes a long way if you can get it.
I don't know if they actually were able to secure that one. Pillar of Agony nearly finds the damage onto Tripno. Look at that wall. Elion stops Zeros from being able to chase out his carries.
Man, Leon has just been on point with these ultimates so far this set, as Snatty nearly able to chase out Deathwalker, who sticks around very low mana.
But there are 3 of them here, and Snatty is all alone. He is an Amaterasu, so he's got a decent amount, but uses the dash aggressively. There's the dazzling offensive. 1, 2, 3 is going to pick up the kill. Does have to use the beads. No teleport available for the monkey, but the overhead smash is going to find the kill.
Yeah, uses the beads to avoid the slow from Trickstank. I think maybe had he held onto it a little bit longer, could have potentially got that dash back up after the pluck, beats that, then potentially escape, but those are very low odds, and Snatty deserves credit for being able to turn around that kill regardless. I think Deathwalker, a little bit overzealous, decides to stick around and make sure the kill does happen, but certainly superfluous. Snatty was very out of position on his own and surrounded by 2, with Zeros on the rotation in as well. Deathwalker maybe could have just headed back to base.
I don't know that they catch Snatty there, though, if they don't have Deathwalker in. You know, like, he dashes away, changes to the speed stuns. I think Snatty's, like, pretty good if he doesn't decide to
dash straight into Zeros.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah.
No, he dashed into Deathwalker.
Yeah, but if Deathwalker isn't there and he dashes away, Zeros was right behind him.
The point is, like, not in that specific situation. He would instead dash into a different player. He would find a way through.
Hey, man, I'm like the chair, too. I'm like doing analyst work. Stop arguing with me, all right? Let me just be right. What's going on
I'm not
here?
going to give you a free, like, right guesses.
You know we're a team, right? Like,
Yeah,
you and
no,
I?
I get we're a team, Mifflin, and part of my job as your teammate is to make you better by not letting you win all the time.
Okay, yeah.
Purely stunned from Mifflin right
Yeah,
here.
just a wild interaction that I didn't expect to have at work today. Let's get on the game here, all right? Hex Mambo nursing a similar lead at the 9-minute mark is what we saw in game 1 and 2. Game 1 originally was Yomi Tanuki nursing that lead themselves. That said, the late game scaling of both of these drafts is interesting. I'd argue Hex Mambo again has gone for a composition that does want to team fight come 30 some odd minutes into the game, but this time around Yomi Tanuki across the board have got pieces that should be able to contend in the late game or even potentially outscale. Johnny, as the game goes on, has become more and more just that ultimate character. He doesn't scale nearly as hard as far as damage is concerned. Sacred Monkey, Overhand Smash, not the highest damaging abilities. But it's an interesting conversation around this new age Erlong Shen consistent auto attack damage, whether or not that's equivalent value.
Sada Dragon and Elion backing up under their tier 1 tower here. Trebucket trying to do some extra damage to that tier 1. And for now, it's going to continue pelting it, but Snatty is forced away from his own blue buff. So that's a pretty big invade on this right-hand side. Johnny really looking like he wants to put some extra pressure on Snatty.
He is. Similarly, Sada Dragon chasing out that left-hand side. E-Chrome shows him that an axe does over 130 damage per auto, and maybe should think about it.
Yikes, though, the damage coming through. Sada Dragon is able to get the 9 tons blessing, and with some healing from Elion, and a little bit of stunning as well, he's going to be just fine to help pick up that kill on Ekrom. But in the meantime, Hex Mambo are able to secure a tier 1 on the right-hand side.
Meanwhile, Snatty's deep in the Yomi jungle, trying to defend his own buffs up against Johnny, as a 3 versus 1 erupts on the left side of the map. Trixtank wants to defend his purple, but not so much so that he's willing to risk his own life.
No, nearly walks face first into Johnny there. Throws a rain fire over the wall, but Johnny is long gone by now. Now, Mifflin, I am looking at these two players, and last game I didn't get a chance to talk about it. Ekrom and Hydrogen. Sorry, I should have specified. That's on me. I didn't get a chance to talk about it last game, or rather to highlight it for you. But I don't believe Ekrom actually went into this crit build that we've been seeing so often, like at all. There was no crit in his build the last game, and I'm wondering what you make of that.
Tank Shred up against multiple Warlock staff, always going to feel pretty nice. Kinsai is going to get great value up against this Agni build, as well as some of these HP stacks. The Snatty's going to pick up a little bit later on. I am still partial to crit. I feel like Wind Demon and Envenom Deathbringer are just incredibly strong. Stat Sticks and Envenom Deathbringer's passive proc is valuable, even if you don't want to build crit otherwise. Yomi Tanuki pull out the Pyro. Deathwalker spots him and stops him in one breath. 4 versus 1, and the 4 don't want it.
But they do want to do some damage to Deathwalker. The CC chain is devastating. And the solo laner from Hex Mambo is going to fall down. The Pyromancer is once again on the menu, but over the wall is Zeros. There's the Fear No Evil disrupting so many people. Down falls Dragon, and Elion surely falls down here as well to the wrath of Zeros. Riptide isn't going to save him this time. Tripno in a bit of trouble as well. Johnny getting routed out here by Snatty. Dazzling offensive, finds all 3 ticks, but the beads is going to be good for now. One more auto should do it, and Snatty finds a second.
Snatty's so incredibly fast with Golden Blade plus the first ability from Amaterasu, who's able to chase out Johnny despite having the speed buff on this Hun bot. So essentially a trade that Yomi Tanuki likely would have preferred to have not taken overall, but in pulling the Pyromancer, open up a door for Hex Mambo to re-engage. Speaking of engagements, Trixtank looking for the pluck is not going to go for it. A roll away from Hydrogen is going to secure his life. The pacing of this game is breakneck compared to everything that we've seen up until this point. 10 kills in about 13 minutes, but experience still favoring the Order side, as is Gold. Hex Mambo getting the better end of a lot of these trades.
But we've been seeing this pretty commonly over the last set. Mifflin, you know, Mambo and Tanuki seem pretty good at controlling the neutral farm in different games. The last 2 have certainly been in favor of Hex Mambo for sure. So no surprise there that the gold difference is leaning more towards their favor.
Yeah, perhaps. At a 5-on-5 with Yomi Tanuki getting first blood for themselves, you might think they'd be able to leverage that a little bit further. That said, Johnny, 2 levels up, the majority of the kills landing onto him, has largely relegated Sada Dragon to just trying to farm his own jungle and try and match some of that pressure that Johnny's able to establish once he does move in towards a couple of these team fights. Speaking of Johnny, a slight shift up in the build, Transcendence into Brawler's Beat Stick, and then what I can only assume is going to be an Erendite immediately afterward.
No Jotuns.
No Jotuns this time. I suppose with the CDR that he's going to get elsewhere, plus like Bumba's Hammer, if that's going to be the case, and it seems like Bumba's Hammer is just the option. You don't really need to pick up a Jotuns this early. Plus, Jotuns has eaten some nerfs recently.
For sure, that's perfectly fair. Doesn't choose to go for it this time, but left-hand lane, Tanuki's choosing to go for Ekrom, force out the ultimate. from the ADC. That was some very slick play, and once again, Elion showing off his Riptide chops.
Leon is just playing on point with this Yamoja, but not quite able to hit pay dirt in the duo lane. Not much you can do in the 2v2 as of now. It's about the team fight, legitimately, or once these junglers decide to rotate over. A slight shift up in the relic selections, though. Snatty decides to pick himself up a Frenzy. Tells me that Yomi Tanuki have got objectives on the brain.
Deathwalker unable to secure the objective here on the right-hand side. Blue buff goes towards Snatty, and the blink is forced away from Deathwalker after Sada Dragon decides to walk into the lane. But Snatty does not care. He is so aggro onto Deathwalker right now that he does not mind at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much that Snatty needs to concern himself with. He's got great answers to anything Hex Mambo can do within reason, right? Like, if Zero's, Johnny, and Deathwalker rotate over, maybe you're able to force out all of the defensive capacity of this Amaterasu, but between a CC immune ultimate, CC immunity from the beads, being the fastest character in this match as well, it's going to be very difficult to punish Snatty in this aggression and in his wild positioning, which is why he's doing things like this, just checking the enemy jungle, seeing if he can slow down this farm. That's helping out Sada Dragon a whole lot. If anything that Snatty could take away from Johnny is going to go a long way to catching this Erlong Shen back up.
And that is the name of the game. Sada Dragon sitting 2 levels down. This time around, that lead finding itself placed in the jungle rather than in the mid lane. This time around, for those of you who don't remember the last game, that 3-level lead that came through in favor of Zeros, over Tripno. Tripno this time around doing a little bit better to stay relevant. If we could take a look at the damage charts, we can see where that's coming from, and Snatty sitting fairly comfortably at the top there.
Yeah, but it's solo lane, so I'm going to reduce it by 5,000 just by rote. Trix Tank tries to get involved. Tripno narrowly avoids the dash. Now Trix caught in no man's land.
I'm not sure he's in much danger here, but I say that the more he walks into that lane, trades his ultimate with Sada Dragon, the 9 times blessing, but he's still taking a fair amount of damage. Dazzling offensive doesn't connect on any of the 3 ticks there, so no stun for Snatty. That is a 2-for-1 ultimate trade in the mid lane.
Yeah, great usage of the Lurking the Waters from Trix Tank to avoid the CC of Sada Dragon. Able to work his way forward and play with his HP bar a little bit more so. Returns some damage to Yomi Tanuki as Deathwalker attempts yet again to steal away the blue buff, but is successful this time. But at what cost? Maybe just his beads.
Well, it seems like every time Sada Dragon walks over to this lane, he's forcing at least one of Deathwalker's relics. You know, if it's not the beads, it's the blink that he's making him use. And, you know, if I'm playing solo and I have a jungler making me use one of my relics every 2 minutes, I'm not very happy about it.
No, it's certainly not ideal for the solo laner, but Deathwalker is still pretty safe at this point. CC immune ultimate, has a leap to get over these walls, and very, very tanky already with Breastplate of Valor and Midgardian Mail. Midgardian a great pickup again against any auto attacker that is in melee range. So Erlong Shen, every time he applies those autos, has the opportunity or chance of having a slow applied to him, meaning that it's going to be very difficult to stick to Deathwalker. But Erlong Shen's also got some built-in tools that can contend with that. The additional movement speed from the ferret form, the pin as well. There are some answers to this style of build from Deathwalker, or maybe the answer could just be Tripno. A Firebomb just does a whole lot to a 0 magic defense Hades.
It really does. We saw how much that Rainfire was able to do to Trix Tank in particular. In the late game, every time he tried to engage on the Kumbhakana, he would be met with 3 ticks of the Rainfire and basically be dead right off the bat there. Speaking of things that are dead right off the bat, Hydrogen could be meeting that description. Pluck back from Trix Tank is going to be met by Johnny. Fear No Evil avoided entirely by the Astral Barrage. Ekrom does walk into the lane though, and there's the Aegis to stop any further damage. Shadow Dragon comes in, but Hydrogen uses every card up his sleeve to maximize his immunity.
Still holds on to his beads though, so a decent bit of survivability still available to Yomi Tanuki's Hunter. That said, I think maybe an overcommitment from Sada Dragon. The idea there is peel out for Hydrogen, but Sada Dragon wanted to initiate the fight, was not quite on the mark with his ultimate, but I suppose can still just act as a dissuasion tool as Deathwalker tries yet again to steal blue and is successful yet again. If I'm Snatty, I'm just fighting Deathwalker instead of trying to clear the buff itself.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. Although, sorry, I don't mean to correct you, but Snatty has been able to secure his own and, in fact, Deathwalker's blue buff the last couple times.
Well, I mean, literally the last one
Well,
went over to
sorry,
Deathwalker.
other than this one here.
and the one before it.
And the one before. In that case, I did not notice.
What's going on,
Just like I'm sorry, dude. Mambo here, unable to steal away that Pyromancer. Elion's going to bump his face up against that wall. Drops his water walls, but I'm not sure it's going to help him survive just yet. Snatty comes in with that speed, or Elion takes a direction change into 3 people. And he's going to fall down for the Pyromancer.
Hex Mambo getting the better end of another initiation. Yomi Tanuki just getting caught out around this Pyromancer multiple times now. With Snatty forced back to base and no teleport as a relic selection, could be that Hex Mambo can just work their way over towards this Gold Fury. Yomi Tanuki have got decent vision on it, so it will not go unnoticed. Pulled out and burning quickly, but 4 members of the Tanuki right on their heels.
Tripno has some very decent steal potential. Zero's no ultimate available to him, but Johnny's still holding on to Fear No Evil. It's going to be a dangerous situation for Tanukis to walk into unless they can force that ultimate away from the monkey.
And not much to do now. Hex Mambo going to fizzle out on this team fight. Don't love their odds in the 5 versus 4 with a couple of their resources already lost. Zero's no ultimate available, one of the most consistent poke tools that Hex Mambo have got at their disposal. So we'll go ahead and reset back to neutral. Yomi Tanuki, though, regrouped and ready. They're going to pull the Gold Fury themselves.
Ekram and Trixtank here, the only ones available to potentially steal this, but with the frenzy popped, 21 minutes into the game is going to be the first Gold Fury secured in favor of the Yomi Tanuki. And that's going to just about pull this game to even. Although, I think I would agree with you in that 2,500 isn't really a lead at this stage of the game. But nonetheless, still a little bit of a boon for the Tanukis.
Yeah, experience, I think, probably a little bit more important at this point. 21 or so minutes in, we're starting to get some of these guys upwards of level 18, level 19. So, you only hit level 20 once in a match. Hex Mambo have not got the largest window to play with. Seems like both of these teams very content to just start really swinging their punches at around that 25 or so minute mark once you're approaching 6th item in the build, already level 20. That said, significant experience advantage already and maintained by Johnny. 3 levels up over Sada Dragon. That's nothing to scoff at. Arendite finished up as well, so once Johnny does initiate with those ultimates, going to become a little bit more quick and able to chase out some of these kills a little easy or more easily. That said, I don't think either of these teams can feel confident in their ability to just pull the Fire Giant. Maybe if you want to bait out a fight, you could say Yomi Tanuki have got the sustain advantage and could potentially try and force Hex Mambo to take an engagement, but with experience as it is, not sure that's the case.
Deathwalker in a 1v2 situation. Trixtank coming in to even the odds for half HP on the solo laner for now is going to be about all he's going to take. Meanwhile, the rest of the Tanukis are able to regroup and look like they're going to go push down this right tier 1. The rest of Hex Mambo hanging around the jungle here. I don't think Tanuki should be pushing any further than that, though. They're going to anyway.
Yeah, maybe push some pressure onto this tower, force Hex Mambo to rotate in defensively. If you can generate enough aggression to control the positioning of your opposition, that is valuable in itself. Trixtank, good pluck on a Sada Dragon, goes unnoticed by the rest of his team. No follow-up there for him, and a good Riptide will peel out for the jungler of Yomi Tanuki. Tier 1 tower on the right falls down, and the Tanuki disengage. If they all head back to base, though, Hex Mambo could just immediately pull this fire. They need to play cognizant of that fact.
Zeros is getting very aggressive here, but look at the middle lane. Johnny potentially looking for a wraparound, or even to just put some pressure on this mid tier 2, force the Tanukis to come back and have a look at it. But it looks like the rest of the Mambos are more than content with just stripping away the rest of Tanuki's jungle and potentially looking back towards this objective.
We are very quickly approaching that 25-minute mark as Hydrogen takes a 1v1 in mid. Johnny strips away those beads. I think that's a valuable trade considering there's probably not another team fight for a couple more minutes. So 160 seconds on Hydrogen's CC Immune Relic. Johnny's already got a good deal of CDR built up and Bumba's Hammer finished. Phenomenal trade for Hex Mambo's jungler. Now, Hydrogen, who was one of the primary win conditions for his team, will have to play a little bit more safely in a couple of these team fights. We're starting to rapidly get to that point where Fire Giant is respawning, or Pyromancer rather, that should be the next POI on the map. I don't imagine we see an overcommitment from either of these squads. Not so valuable that you're willing to trade your life, especially with the game as even as it is right now. So it's more so about poking and prodding and seeing if maybe you can make use of what you've done in previous team fights. And right now, the main standout, the elephant in the room, is the fact that we're 2 minutes away from Hydrogen getting those beads back.
Absolutely, and well, trying to potentially take some advantage of that. Mambo looking to go aggressive here. Deathwalker jumps into 3, but he's going to get stunned out instantly. The damage so far into Deathwalker is good. Going to beads out the 9 tons blessing, and it is going to trigger Zero's ult. I don't think he's going to get too much value out of it, though. Yomi Tanuki are basically full HP, but the space created is going to give Hex Mambo enough time to probably finish up this Pyromancer for free.
Deathwalker resustaining on his own blue buff. Bumba's Hammer plus Hades will happen to do that for you. But Yomi Tanuki, realizing that Hex Mambo had to use resources to take out Pyromancer, will re-establish defensive positioning and actually pull the Fire Giant proper.
The Frenzy's popped here, and I don't think Hex Mambo were really ready. Blinking through the waves is Trick's tank, and what a beautiful use of the River. Elion completely blocks off the rest of Hex Mambo, and they sneak away a Fire Giant when they really should not have been allowed to.
That's the risk of going for Pyromancer there. Hex Mambo are forced to disengage very far if they don't want to get caught out by the reinitiation of Yomi Tanuki. And Tanuki say, oh, you don't want to stand here and fight us? I suppose we'll do the only thing that is right here, as you've already cleared out the Pyro, and pull out the Fire Giant itself. So now, in very good position to continue sieging out these towers. 5 still standing for Hex Mambo. You've got a cheeky grin. What do you want to share?
Hey, you and Elion, you're matching. You both got pineapples. It's an outfit match. I just like that. I just thought it was neat. I wasn't expecting you to like.
You looked at me and pointed at the screen. I gotta think you're sharing something.
I don't know. I just thought it was a neat coincidence. You're both wearing pineapples today. Maybe Elion saw the shirt, took some inspiration.
Are you talking about the SMITE skin?
Yeah. She's got pineapples.
Fire Giant on 5 members of Yomi Tanuki as they start to approach this left-hand wave, and they will start to push it out, I think, very easily. That said, 3-2 split with the duo lane inside the soul lane for Yomi Tanuki means that there's not really much opportunity to stick around and fight. Yomi Tanuki will be forced back to base on the left-hand side, concerned maybe about a 5-stack from Hex Mambo, and I think that concern is well-founded as Snatty spots out E-Chrome in the jungle. This is a very curious pace to a Fire Giant. Gold, equalize, experience, just a non-factor at this point. You'd think Yomi Tanuki would want to start working their way through these permanent objectives, but so far still have not regrouped. 40 seconds expended, nothing done with it just yet.
But here they come through the mid lane, potentially, but instead of going for the tower, it looks like they potentially want to fight here around the red buff, but do decide against it, eventually going back towards that middle objective. Tier 1 taken off the map, and it looks like Hex Mambo aren't looking too afraid about potentially defending this Tier 2, so the Yomi Tanukis are going to take their business elsewhere.
Yeah, Tier 2 is certainly defensible. Tier 1's not the case. Yomi Tanuki should be able to pick up the left side one, but Hex Mambo spend their time pushing out those waves, so it's going to waste a little bit more of Yomi Tanuki's time. It's not an enhanced Fire Giant, so backdoor protections certainly still there. 4-second Tanuki lining up and seeing if maybe Hex Mambo will step forward as Satyr Dragon goes to collect the wave. A very lackadaisical approach to the Fire Giant, very slowly working their way across the map. Finally, all Tier 1 towers have gone down, so we might see a true fight here. Only 2 Tier 1s taken with Fire Giant so far, so the gold in pocket, not so massive that I think Yomi Tanuki need to head back. It wouldn't be a significant advantage for them to spend this gold just yet. Pick up a couple Tier 2s, then talk to me.
The 2 junglers meeting here in the jungle. Getting into a bit of a scrap here. Satyr Dragon forced to use that dash already. Snatty
Goodness.
takes a decent amount of damage there just from stepping a toe in. But it looks like Hex Mambo have used what they are willing to give up. Their abilities are on cooldown. They don't really have anything else to defend this tower with. So Yomi Tanuki gonna walk in, pick it up nice and quickly, and potentially move towards the middle lane yet again. But with 40 seconds left on this Fire Giant, I'm not sure there's too much more they can do.
Still a 3-stack on left from Hex Mambo. E-Chrome, no Aegis, and Zeros realizes that 2 bombs is 50% of his HP bar. I think Yomi Tanuki should be able to at least pepper some damage in this Tier 2. Don't overcommit. You're not invincible at this point. You don't have a whole lot of time to play with, but certainly enough to poke some damage in.
Deathwalker blinking forward, finds 3, forcing a lot from the Yomi Tanuki, but once again, this disengage is so good from this squad.
It is, and even in just stepping up to the tier 2 tower, strip away some resources from Hex Mambo. So that's Aegis for 2 minutes on Echrome, Blink for 2 minutes on Deathwalker, and the Pillars of Agony. So great, just small commitment from Yomi Tanuki to see what they can take away, and they take away a couple priority pieces from Hex Mambo. Fire Giant will be coming back down towards the earth in about 50 seconds, and when it does, it will be purple enhanced, meaning that whichever squad picks this up will not have to contend with backdoor protections. As the map state is, only thing separating these two teams as of now is one tier 2 tower taken by Yomi Tanuki. Gold still just about equal. Experience matters just as little as it did last time I brought it up, which was about 4 minutes ago. This is a dead even fight. The only thing that's going to get either of these teams, the Fire Giant, is the play on field. I think the ideology is clear for Hex Mambo. Close gap on a Tripno. Stop this Agony. His damage output has been far, far too much. And in stripping away the beads from both Tripno and Hydrogen, both carries of Yomi Tanuki going to be exposed to the initiation of Hex Mambo. You better believe Johnny's taking note.
I feel like Zeros hasn't really had as much impact as we've seen him had on this Baba Yaga before as well. He's been struggling to connect on these ultimates, and a lot of that is due to Elion and the placement of these walls. We've seen just so many times him get blocked off by the Emoja ultimate from being able to do consistent damage to these carries, and with the Pyromancer coming down, this could be a decent opportunity for Tanukis to move in.
That was where they chose to initiate last time around, but this time Hex Mambo dedicate much less. There was no skirmish beforehand, so Yomi Tanuki will have to wait and see if Hex Mambo step a little too far forward. Again, carries with no beads means that carries have got no bravery to play with as of now. Instead, gonna wait and see, Yomi Tanuki that is, whether or not Hex Mambo is willing to step forward and step out of line. Enhanced Fire Giant, not pulled just yet, but vision advantage is over to Mambo. Yomi Tanuki, if they want to check, will have to check with their faces, and they do exactly that. Leon peeks around the corner, realizes nobody's here.
That could be a window for these players here to try and get some aggression there, but Tanuki don't want to risk the play just yet. As you said, both of these carries, no beads available to them for the next 20 seconds. So expect sparks to fly around that 32-minute mark, ladies and gentlemen, because that's when I expect we'll start to see these two teams looking to engage. Oh, wow, I say these two teams, Yomi Tanuki to be willing to step back up into this fight.
Everybody's just about upgraded their starters, or literally everyone has. Gold largely equalized, everybody approaching level 20 except for the supports who are tied at level 19. Every single ultimate up and available, every single relic up and available. The only thing separating these teams now are the wards on the map. As of now, Yomi Tanuki, slight advantage, wards inside the Fire Giant pit. Take a peek at the pockets. Only 2 sentries available to both of these teams. One in Johnny's pocket and one in the pocket of Tripno. So, I think this is about as close as it's going to get, and what you see on the screen is what we're fighting over right now. Yomi Tanuki with a ward in the Fire Giant pit proper don't need to step up. They can wait for Hex Mambo, and they'll know they have perfect information.
This is a really deep play from Hex Mambo. We've moved completely away from the Fire Giant at this point. It looks more like they want to go for the tower, and the Tanukis are more than happy to meet them back over here. But the tower's going to fall down before they're really able to assemble. Dashing forward is Snatty, looking to deal with that backline and just create some space. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side, Zeros is getting attacked by Dragon. Half HP on the mid laner, but he's also going to have to disengage. That's going to be basically nothing for both of these teams.
Split initiation. It was Snatty creating space in the middle of the map that allows Sada Dragon to make contact with Zeros, dropping him down to about 50% HP, taking away his Aegis, and taking away his ultimate. Meanwhile, it is the 9 turns blessing as well as the dazzling offensive expended by Yomi Tanuki, but they want the fight anyway.
Ekrom nearly takes 2 shots of Rainfire, but the Aegis saves him for just a moment. Down he falls, and the Pillar of Agony saves 2 people for now. Tripno falls down, but he's already used all of his damage thus far. Johnny, no ultimate available, and Zeros falls down in trade. The mid laners from both teams now not available to them in this engagement. Johnny could be in some trouble. The dazzling offensive not going to connect with anyone from Snatty. Now it's a 3v4 situation. Fire Giant is started back up again, but Tanuki's looking to re-engage on the fight. Dragon is very low though, and Deathwalker dashes over this wall. He could be in a very bad spot here.
Yeah, no way he escapes from Snatty, who's going to be able to stick to him very, very easily. The rest of Yomi Tanuki hot on their heels, but it's Trix Tank coming in with a tail whip. Great peel, forces Sada Dragon away.
And Johnny is standing right in the middle lane. I don't think Tanuki can really afford to fight them. Dragon just about able to back there right in plain view of both Trix and Deathwalker, but Tanuki's, they don't really have the damage here to try and fight into these. Hydrogen wasn't really able to get many clean shots in.
Hex Mambo bought a lot of time, forces Yomi Tanuki back to base. Meanwhile, on the left side of the map, Trebuchet gonna take down that tier 2 tower. Snanny yet again tries to connect with another dazzling offensive, does so, but Sada Dragon not close enough to help out. Nobody else is either. So what does Hex Mambo do? They keep the Yomi Tanuki distracted, and in doing so, pick themselves up yet another permanent objective. Only one tier 2 tower standing still for the Chaos team. 35 minutes in, both squads vying for their positioning. Both squads really just want to move on to the next group and not have to play yet again today. That said, 35 minutes of poking and prodding has only established about 1,000, 2,000 or so gold lead 35 minutes in. And I said it earlier, 1,000 gold at 20 minutes doesn't really mean a whole lot, means even less. The longer the clock ticks onward, everybody level 20. It really is just play on field and whether or not you can get towards these priority targets. It was Johnny in the last team fight who connects with Tripno and was able to remove this Agni from the team fight. Sure, it was after all 3 bombs had been expended, but even in just removing them, the stuns from range with the Flame Wave Noxious Fumes combo would have been pretty agonizing to deal with. Hex Mambo's jungler says, I simply won't. I'll instead delete him.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, the Oni Fury might bring some opportunities here for Yomi Tanuki. All 3 lanes now being flooded with those enhanced minion waves. Might help them reclaim a little bit of pressure on this left lane, which they did just lose a whole ton of thanks to that Trebuchet over on the left-hand side.
Oni minion wave, or enhanced minion wave rather, on the left side. Going to be working for Yomi Tanuki as Snatty's pulled forward, but he's tanky. This Amaterasu unconcerned.
Deathwalker can't say the same thing though. Dropped to half HP, courtesy of Tripno. He's going to have to find himself a wave here in the mid lane to try and heal up. Meanwhile, Trix Tank seems like he's the target, forced under the water. That's going to be about it for that piece of engagement. Zeros and Ekrom are isolated here on the right-hand side, but Tanukis don't have any interest.
Deathwalker very quickly resustained in mid, so should be able to rejoin the fight if needed. Yomi Tanuki, the only one who's dropped low, is Leon. Yamoja has some self-healing, but not the most. It's more so about the healing she can afford to her team, so Leon will head back to base. Similarly to Trix Tank, and yet again, the Dance of the Fire Giant begins anew. Yomi Tanuki do not have the vision advantage this time around. Instead, it's Hex Mambo with wards in the pit. Taking a peek at the pockets, 2 sentries in the pockets of Hex Mambo, whereas Yomi Tanuki have only got the 1. These small vision advantages can be the difference between a win or a loss in these team fights. Yomi Tanuki have got very defensive vision. If anybody tries to rotate around or go for the flank, Tanuki will be privy to it. Otherwise, if the fight erupts around the Fire Giant or Hex Mambo's side of the map, well, it's going to favor Mambo, who've got very, very strong vision around the objective itself.
Moving on to it, though, is Tanuki's, and they are going to disable the sentry that Mambo just left there. So the ward battle continues, even if Mambo have a little bit more knowledge in the surrounding area. But just look at how quickly, Mifflin, this team is able to do damage to that Fire Giant. If they can get on the objective for any longer than, what, 10 seconds? I think that should be a clean objective for them. Ekrom, look at his health bar, absolutely demolished by a stray rain fire. Meanwhile, the rest of the team caught out here. Johnny and Elion combining with some CC for both teams. Dragon is on the right-hand side, but he's going to get chased up by Johnny. Meanwhile, Tripno falls down in the mid lane in a devastating play by Hex Mambo. Only 1 falls in trade for 3.
A Category 5 natural disaster tier, Fear No Evil from Johnny, is what stops the Yomi Tanuki in their traps. If you were only watching the first 3 seconds of that team fight, you're singing the praise of the Chaos and North America. Those bombs may have connected with Ekrom, but at what cost? 3 members of the Tanuki removed, only 2 standing.
But it's a big member. Ekrom now, the main structural damage dealer of the team, is off the board. And look at how much slower this team is able to pick up the Phoenix. They are still able to complete the objective, but it took them a little bit longer, which could mean a little bit of something, but the damage isn't really available for this Tanuki squad. Snatty has to go back to base. Elion has to go back to base, and already below half HP is this Titan, and these players just can't do enough to save it. Yomi Tanuki fall down to the losers bracket despite such a strong showing in game number 2.
Hex Mambo, even on ping, still certainly a force to be contended with, are able to take it in 3. But that was a long, hard-fought battle between these two teams. Cannot wait to see what they can do for the rest of the tournament. And I'm sure that's not the last we'll see of our boys, Leon and the squad, as they will have an opportunity to try and meet back up in the next group. They're just going to play another best of 3.
It's going to be rough for them. They got to be tired, Mifflin. This is this was a 3, basically 40 minutes a pop set. This has been a long series of games, and while Mambo can now sit on their laurels and go, okay, we're done, we can now relax and for a little bit longer, get our energy back. This team on the Tanukis are going to have so many more games to play.
Luckily for the Tanuki, there's a set to be played between those, so they've got some time to recuperate, get some protein in their stomachs, get ready for this next set, but I'm sure that's not going to leave a great taste in their mouth. That is a tough way to fall down.
Well, we'll have to check back in with the Yomi Tanukis in a little bit, but we've got another best of 3 coming up after this.
Our first best of 3 of the week to go the distance, and on top it's Hex Mambo to find a victory. The EU powerhouses finally able to make a name for themselves and be the first of the EU SCC teams to qualify into the next day of play. They'll be greeted by a couple of those North American squads with the Wardens and the Hounds. But there's still more to go, and there's still some to break down between these games here at the very least. Another long one between the Mambo and the Tanuki. Trelly, we have witnessed 3 40-plus minute games here, all of these going that full distance, and really all of them coming down to a lot of these big team fight presences around these fire giants, making sure to find those picks. Hex Mambo able to come out on top here at the end.
Yeah, it just seemed like the large team fight circles, the Pillar of Agony from Hades and the Fear No Evil from Hoonbats, the combo itself. You can't beads both. If you beads one, the other one's going to be detrimental. So the team up there between Deathwalker and Johnny just seemed so difficult to deal with as the game went on. And as you mentioned, all it took was some late game team fighting with those characters to really seal this one for Mambo.
And it really did start over here in the duo lane, at least for Johnny and the side of Hex Mambo, able to find some picks. Johnny hitting 5 during that engagement, probably what allows them to really be able to push for that early lead. But then again, we're talking about an early lead, and it doesn't really matter in these ones. Sure, Hex Mambo were able to grab a bit of an early start for themselves, and then Yomi Tanuki able to even things out over the course of it. But once we start getting into these big team fights, I think it's really important that you highlighted there that Johnny and Deathwalker are probably the most pivotal players with their CC.
Yeah, the ultimates were just too much to deal with, and the Tanuki answered back. They got the Pyro. I believe they got the first Gold Fury as well, so the early stages of the game was going pretty heavily their way. But if you look at the timer, about 40 minutes in, give or take, it was just the combination of those two ultimates. You couldn't beads both of them. If you look at the timers, they're going down pretty much simultaneously, and that's all it takes. Johnny was able to clean up everything after the fact because you're just locked in place for so long.
Yeah, it's a very long CC chain to deal with. Johnny ends 7-1-4 on his squad. The dual lane not able to find any kills for themselves. Trixtank and Echrome come up goose egg in the kill department, though 11 assists and a goose egg under the deaths, at least for Trixtank. They're able to stay alive for the entire game. I'm not sure how Trixtank stayed alive for the entirety of that game. Maybe he helped to some of those mitigations built up into his kit.
Wait, Echrome got out damaged by Trix?
Wow. Wow.
Hunters are broken, by the way.
Yeah, Hunters are kind of sick, if you didn't know. Could have fooled me, though, here. I mean, Zeros, Johnny, 27 and 20k damage, player damage, respectively, between those two. Kind of the big names out there, the CC, the Deathwalker, and Trixtank were able to provide out there. And Echrome just kind of got to coast a little bit this game.
Yeah, to be fair, when you do a small amount of player damage, you have to look at the opposition. It wasn't like Hydrogen was popping off either. Only 12k to the 10k. So I think that more so just says how much Trix was getting active. A lot of AoE damage with the Sickening Strike and the knockup from the Tail Whip. So I think Trix was just going in consistently, and that's why his damage numbers out-damaged the Heimdall.
I mean, Trixtank does love playing these W key style Guardians.
Oh, yeah.
So any Guardian that can just run in and face roll his buttons in order to get some damage out there, he's going to be wanting to play that one. So big win out here for Hex Mambo. That means that they are done for today. It means that they do move on into the next day of play, moving into group number 3 now. And they'll be, like I said, meeting up with some of those NA teams that had qualified from the day before, and now waiting one final team, I should say, in order to face off up against. And then that one will be coming up next, the Niflheim Wargs and the Shabalba Storm. If you remember that far back, Charlie, the two teams that lost in our first 2 best of 1s of the day, loser of that set goes home. Winner moves on to face the Yomi Tanuki for one final spot to advance into Group 3.
So this was the promotion game. We're about to see the demotion game, if you will. Someone is going home sad at the end of match 9. That's what you're saying.
Right. This was the winner boys matchup. Right. Now we're watching the loser boys matchup after, and then we're seeing the 2 kind of loser winner boys teams face off.
Right. We're trying to see who the best of the losers will be.
Exactly.
I'm understanding now. I'm glad that you broke it down for me.
Had to simplify it for you. Had to simplify it mostly for myself over anything. No, mostly for me. You were here to witness the simplification at the very least.
Yeah, but I mean, again, great gameplay there by Mambo to finish that one up. A hard-fought win. At least now they can rest their heads. But the Tanuki, as you mentioned, they're not done yet. There's still no time to rest for them.
Yeah, that's a very important one. At least they get a watch back on this set and kind of take a look at the opposition. We will have the Shabalba Storm taking on the Niflheim Wargs. That set's going to be coming up right after this.